This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning and welcome to Brent in the Tent. Yes, it's one of those days where the drizzle is out in the Sabi Sand Game Reserve, and we're going to take you on an informative journey looking at all our little toys behind us. We've got lots of bones and skulls. We've got a see-through tiger even. And we have got a human being in pieces. And it looks like there's his arm. Now, we'll probably try to play with that, put it back together a little bit later. But, of course, exciting stuff happened last night on the dam cam. Tingana managed to catch an impala, have it stolen by hyenas, and then steal it back. So those of you watching the dam cam last night must have thoroughly enjoyed that. So I know Tristan is heading in that direction to see if he can find a Tingana. I'm not sure what Sydney's plan is, but he is also going to be out there. And it looks like we're in for some nasty weather. Isn't that a song, Sebastian? Nasty. I don't know. But remember, if you have any questions for us, hashtag SafariLive. Now, from the tent today, we're going to be doing lots of quizzes. We're going to be finding lots of cool things, small things, close by things. And maybe we'll even have a little visit with the sweat bees that live inside the giraffe's skull. Well, in the brain cavity, to be specific. Now, I haven't been in the tent for many a moon, so it's quite exciting, something a little bit different. And as I said, we've got lots of different things here, from Gnormless Gnorman, the Gnu's cousin, all sorts of predators with sharp teeth. And we're going to have to definitely work our way through these today. Okay. Well, I'm going to prepare something for you guys to think about very deeply while I am in the tent. In the meantime, let's send you across to Sydney so he can say good morning.
A very, very good morning and welcome to the beginning of the morning game drive. I am Sydney Mikosi and I'm traveling with Senzo, who is my camera operator this morning, and I'm hoping to get you see quite a lot of interesting wildlife here by the western side of the Djuma Game Reserve, the western side of the Kruger National Park, the Sabi Sand Djuma Game Reserve. My plan this morning is quite very easy. I'll be looking for the spotted cats, and the weather is perfect. It's drizzling at the moment, so I can see that the rain is about to come. You mustn't forget that I come from the Limpopo province, which is the only province having a rain queen in the country. So because of that, I brought you some rain this morning. So the rain queen is one of the royal queens who is responsible to perform some rituals in order to call for the rain. Every year in Limpopo, there is an annual event whereby we go and call for the rain. So now, let's go to Tristan, who is lucky with a spotted cat.
Indeed, so we are luckily kind of caught up with Tingana, who's in the tree. Now, you might notice that it is very, very dark. We thought we might be able to get away without an infrared light, but it is much darker than we first anticipated, and so it's still a little bit kind of grainy, which I do apologize about. Anyway, my name is Tristan, as Sydney mentioned. On camera today I've got David, and it is a very warm welcome to all of you. I hope that you are having a wonderful day wherever you may be, and that you continue to have a good day or night further and enjoy spending the next few hours with us. Now, Tingana last night, he apparently made this kill on the dam cam at around, started about 8 o'clock I think is when it happened. He unfortunately lost it to hyenas very, very briefly, and that's why the carcass looks like it's been ribboned up completely. I'll try and give you a little bit of, I don't really want to shine my spotlight too much, but I'm just going to try and give David a bit of light on the carcass itself so that you can actually see what the carcass looks like. So we're just trying to give a little bit of extra light. It's very overcast and rainy this morning, and so that's why it's so dark. But big adult male impala, you can see it's been torn up, and that's typical from hyenas. That's not something a leopard normally does, although Tingana must have fed really well. He was very hungry yesterday. Brent was saying that he followed him all day hunting and he didn't have much success, but obviously last night as darkness fell, well, Tingana managed to help himself to a good meal, which is excellent news. He was starting to look like he needed a bit of a meal, and so that will go a long way to filling him up. Now, normally when we arrive at these kind of carcasses with Tingana, particularly in this particular spot, it's generally always a good idea to scan around for Hosana, because we know Hosana also likes to be around, and this morning he doesn't seem that he's here, but there is a hyena that you can just see in the kind of edge of the frame over there, so where the spotlight is. I'm not, like I say, not trying to shine on any of the animals. We're just trying to kind of get a bit of light for David to work with, because it is very, very dark this morning. And isn't that cool? So we've got one hyena in attendance, we've got a leopard, and I wonder if we're going to get more of each, because we really are in the best spot for Hosana to arrive. He loves this kind of area, and that's why I would imagine that he's going to kind of head up in this sort of general direction. Now, this particular tree is not the same tree that Hosana used to use for his kills. Hosana uses the tree behind us, which is a jackalberry tree. This is the dead tree that he sits in every now and then when he had those kills, but it's the best tree that we could ask for. You can kind of park eye level to it, which is quite special, and so you can get these really ridiculous views of these leopards from here, and be able to kind of almost feel as though you're up the tree with them, which is quite a kind of special thing. But you can see Tingana is going to town on this impala. He is going to eat as much as he can. And for those of you that are a little bit squeamish, probably not a good idea to watch too much of this, because there are going to be bits of meat all over the place. Like I say, when hyenas are fed, it often gets a little bit messy, and it starts to kind of look as though there's bits hanging all over the place. That hyena looks very relaxed, doesn't it? Now, it's starting to get a little bit lighter, so I'm just trying to see if I can see any other sign of any, like I say, any of our other leopards. Now, Zephyr, you say that the hyena slept here all night, or I'm not surprised. When they know that there's a meal around, they will sleep all night long. They will try and wait and hope that they can sneak themselves a little meal, and so it does kind of happen that they sleep in these areas, and I'm surprised it's only one. I would have thought with the commotion of this kill taking place and, you know, being stolen and then restolen back by Tingana, that we would have seen some sort of sign of, you know, more hyenas than just the one. So I'm pretty surprised there's only the one of them. Maybe as the morning progresses there will be more. Now, is that another animal in the background there? Just looking on the other side towards the dam, just trying to see if there's something sitting there. There's the nest cam that's reflecting at us, but I thought maybe on the edge there was something, but it's not. That looks like just a part of the log. So that's where we kind of are in relation to the pan, and so I'm pretty sure the dam cam would be able to see this way during the course of the day, which is quite nice. Hopefully that'll all get back up and running. I know that went down for a little bit last night, but how cool is this? What an epic way to start our day. So, Justin, will Tingana push Hosana out soon? I don't know. I mean, Justin, we don't know these things. It's summaries by everybody. There's half of our kind of team reckons that is going to happen. The other half is not sure. I mean, it's difficult to say. You know, there's strange things happen with leopards, and if we've learned one thing from this area is that what you read in books and what is supposed to happen doesn't always, and you get kind of really random different things kind of taking place in these areas. And so, you know, for now, I would hesitate to say anything's going to happen. Hosana seems to be quite comfortable. Tingana doesn't seem to be too agitated by Hosana's presence for now. And so how long that's going to last, I don't know. Whether it's going to be like that forever, could be. You know, it's very difficult to say. And like I would hesitate to give a solid answer about all of this. Hello, Tingy. You look very happy with yourself, and not surprising. You've got yourself a good meal, that's for sure. And that's a nice big impala ram, so that's a solid amount of meat for him. So Octogal, we parked on the dam wall at the moment, which means that he doesn't look like he's very high at all. But actually, you can see at the bottom where the dam wall kind of drops off that he's more than high enough for any predators. I mean, things like hyenas are rarely going to battle to get anywhere near that. Lions would easily be able to get into that tree, as would obviously any other leopard. But it's definitely high enough not to worry about hyenas. It's actually quite a nice tree for an animal to drag a carcass up, because they don't actually have to do too much effort, because it kind of slopes off on this left side here. You can see it's quite a nice gentle sort of slope to drag it up. You're not dragging it vertically up against gravity. It's kind of just onto the branch and then sliding it up onto that particular tree, and the depth just drops off as the dam wall drops off, so it starts to kind of get higher off the ground. Now normally this tree, if this dam was very, very full and would like it used to be, would be just underwater a little bit, or this would hang over the water, and then it would have been even better. But you know, beggars can't be choosers. When you're running from a hyena that's on your tail with a carcass in your mouth, you grab any tree you can. And like I say, it's perfectly safe from any hyenas. There's no ways Tingana is going to have to worry too much about it. But the only problem with this tree is that it is very, very visible. You can see it from everywhere. So if you had to be any other predator that walked towards this pan or around this area, they're going to spot it very clearly, because it is so out in the open. There's very little foliage on this tree, and so it's one of those things that unfortunately will be spotted by all and sundry. And so that's the only downside to it. So otherwise, it is very, very, very pleasant. And like I say, for us, it is probably one of the best trees that we could ask for, because it is a beautiful, beautiful spot. I remember clearly having Hosanna in this tree during the kind of Gauntlet series, just sitting around trying to get out of the way of hyenas, and it was really quite beautiful in there. So we're lucky that he's up this side, and lucky that he is spending his time in this particular tree and not one that's got more foliage. Right, so now while we sit and enjoy Tingana, we're probably going to spend most of our morning here, especially given that the rain is starting to blow in. And so while we do that, let's send you back across to Sydney and see how his search is going.
I am missing Tingana a lot. I haven't seen Tingana for quite a long time, as I was on leave. But now I can see that my trekking activities is disturbed a little bit by this rain, because the tracks, they got disappeared. So all the tracks that I'm going to find now will be probably new. I am now heading towards the cheetah cut line just to check the borders, because I think that will be the easiest way for me to find these animals, is to check and make sure that they are in the property. Because here I can see on the roads it's not very easy. The tracks are not clear at all. But the weather is suitable for the activities of cats. Thank you very much for such a lovely comment. And yes, it has been a very long leave. And most of all, thank you again to you all for all the warm welcome. I think Senzo spotted something here just jumping. Oh, it was a decker, a very shy decker. I can see how that decker is running, just ducking and diving, going too fast. Karen, nothing has changed yet. Tingana is still my favorite leopard, and I'm very jealous that Tristan got him at the moment. I missed Tingana. So I can't wait to see Tingana. So the rain is drizzling a lot here where I am, which is very good for the grass. I can see if the grass is getting moisturized now. And maybe this is going to keep quite a lot of prey animals very stable this morning. I haven't experienced rain for quite a long time. So I don't mind getting wet this morning. So this morning it didn't rain a lot, it's just drizzling, but when looking at the grasses here, I can see that this grass is looking very wet and not bad for the grazing animals. There's quite a lot of moisture on it now. Maybe this is going to excite the grass in order to start bring back the nutritious grass. So the birds are not calling a lot this morning, so it means it's very quiet here where I am. So I'm just going to check the cheetah cut line area and back to Central and see if we can pick up some tracks. So now let's go back to Tristan with a lovely Tingana.
Indeed, and he's now stood up to show all of his kind of glory in terms of how big he is, and I'm sure Sydney will be able to catch up with Tingana maybe this afternoon. But you can see that his belly, even though he's eaten quite a bit, is still not completely swollen. I mean, it's big, but it's not monstrous just yet, so he's got a long way to go. There's still a lot of meat on this carcass. It maybe doesn't look like it, but there is still a lot. There's still both back legs, the front leg and the neck area, and so there's still going to be a huge amount that he can kind of swallow down. Unfortunately, what happens though when hyenas get hold of carcasses is their rate of feeding is that much faster than somebody like Tingana or a leopard like Tingana, and so they kind of take massive chunks off it very quickly, and they can lighten a carcass's load in quite a short period. We saw that with Sana the other day when he had his bushbuck. Those two hyenas almost obliterated that carcass in the kind of hour that we were there, and that's only two of them, so they can really kind of put it away, and that's maybe why Tingana doesn't have as full a belly, even though this carcass is as damaged as it is. But the rain is definitely now starting to fall a lot harder. It's going to be, I think, one of those days. I believe that we're supposed to get quite heavy rain today. We're supposed to get rain that's going to be the first kind of proper rains. They're saying that we're going to get around sort of 20 mils maybe today and an extra 10 or so tomorrow, which is probably the first kind of proper rains, and that will definitely leave puddles, and it will certainly start to refill dams a little bit if we do get that much. It also depends on what kind of rain we get. If we get thunderstorm rain, then you get a lot of runoff, which generally kind of goes into the pans itself. But if it's the soft soaking rain, then generally what you get is the kind of it goes into the ground a little bit more, and so it's good for vegetation growth and trees and grasses, but not so good for filling up dams and the likes. But it'd be nice. Imagine seeing Gari Dam full again. That would be quite something. Miranda, if hyenas could grab it, they would. I'm pretty sure this hyena has been trying all night, but it's very far. It doesn't look like it's a long way down there, but it is a long way down. If I had to go stand there and put my arm up, I still wouldn't reach that, and even if I jumped, I wouldn't reach that. It's probably, I would say, maybe 15, 16 foot to that tree, to that impala leg from the ground. Maybe a little bit less than that, maybe about 14 foot, which makes it very high. It's not easily gettable from anything. In fact, the only thing that I reckon could get there, like I say, is any of the cats that could potentially climb. Even things like wild dog or the likes wouldn't be able to actually get into a tree like this and to be able to actually kind of find themselves at the kill itself. So it's a good tree for a leopard. There, like I said, the only problem with it is that there's, lions would be easily kind of able to get up there, and also to see it because it's so visible from everywhere. It would be easy to kind of spot it from a long way away, and that would make it, easily scavenged by things like lions and potentially other leopards. Although if you Tingana, there's really no other leopards that are going to challenge you on this particular patch at this stage. I mean, you can never say never. A random male might arrive here, but for now, it's just Tingana that's kind of in this area and nobody else. And he is on top of the leopard food chain, and so if anyone's doing stealing around here, it's generally him. So I think he's quite safe to just sit inside of his kind of, what would you call it, his territory, and then sit up his tree and just feed away on his impala carcass. But very cool to see that he got a meal. I'm super happy. Brent was saying that he was stalking all night, and I know the guys did a bit of drone testing last night and found Hosanna, and they followed Tingana around a bit, and Tingy was hunting everything. He was trying to go after as much as he could, from dikers to nyalas to everything, and eventually he obviously got it right down towards the pan area. It's just amazing that it actually happened on the kind of dam cam, around the dam cam area. I don't think the kill was actually seen on the dam cam, but it was definitely heard, and then the commotion thereafter was caught. So very good. I'm glad that he got himself a good meal. It's always nice when the Duke is well fed. Right, now, because of the inclement weather, it means that Brent Leo Smith is in the tent, and I wonder what he's got up his sleeve for today.
I don't have a buffalo up my sleeve, that's for certain. But we've got some ideas, and we're going to put it forward to you to where you would like to talk about. Now, we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about the Sabi Sand since we're here. And since we're in the tent and we have technology at our disposal, I'm going to give you a list of 4 different areas that we can talk about in Africa, and let's have a little vote to see which areas you guys would like to talk about the most. Okay, we're going to start with the Okavango Delta in Botswana, that ecosystem, the Chobe, Kondo, Okavango area. We can chat about that for a bit. We can chat about the northern Kafue, which is another place I've spent a lot of time. We can chat about the Selous Game Reserve in southern Tanzania, or we can chat about where Sebastian Hombi, my cameraman, is from. He's Gabon. Am I saying it right? Gabon. And we've both spent a lot of time in Gabon, and that's where we've been discussing and looking at on the map at the moment. Gabon, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, that whole area. So you guys vote. There will be a poll on Twitter, so hashtag SafariLive. Look for that poll, and you can find... Oh, geez, this mouse has got a mind of its own. Check it. I'm not even touching it. Oh, it wants to go there. Let's go have a look.
It means they want
It means
to go there.
While we think. That is the yes. That is the capital of Ogoelolo province. In central Gabon. Now, this is the capital of a province, and to give you an idea, there are only 16,000 people that live there. Gabon has got a very, very small population, and the country is about the size of, half the size of Texas, half the size of France, as a general rule. You can see it is completely surrounded by forests. Here we go. I have not been there. Have you been there, Sebastian?
No, I know the name, but I've never been there.
Apparently, a lot of you don't know how to spell most of the places we're talking about, but it's a very interesting part of the world. And actually, I think I might go back next year for a little holiday to do some fishing. There's some excellent fishing there, giant tarpon and whatnot. But there's some very interesting... Actually, let's go over here. Let's go off Cameroon quickly. And we're going to go to a very strange little island called Bioko. Now, Bioko is fascinating, and go away, moving mouse. Bioko has got some really, really interesting animals, and very, very unique. That the fact that it hasn't broken from the mainland too long ago. So you've got speciation happening in real time there. So it's a very important place for researchers, especially with the research of evolution, and it's happening in sort of real time. So often on big land masses, it's quite difficult to see that sort of happening in real time. That's why islands like the Galapagos and Bioko, from an African point of view, are very important when it comes to studying the development and evolution of animals and birds. So I've got a question for you while you decide which area we're going to talk about. I would like to know, what is the most iconic endemic species of the island of Bioko? Hashtag SafariLive if you know the answer. I'll give you a clue. It's a primate. Okay. We're going to wait for answers. Stretching now. Well, we thought we would be striding through the savannah, but we are sitting comfy. And at least I have my hot cup of tea. But I can see what Tristan's saying, and it looks like Tingana is tucking in to that impala.
Well, we're still sitting with Tingana. Not much has changed at the moment. We're just kind of watching him go about his business. And at this stage, what we're going to see with him is probably, in all likelihood, that he's going to really feed himself silly while the conditions are nice and cool like this. And then you'll find he's probably going to come down, find himself a nice little spot and curl up and sleep for the remainder of the morning. And the thing is, though, is that if he does do that, you never know who's around. And like I say, especially with somebody like Hosana, the next thing you know, he'll be in here and trying to get up into that tree. And so it's worth just sticking around here for most of our morning. I'm also pretty sure we might get one or two other hyenas coming past as they kind of mill about and start heading back maybe towards the den or something like that. They might come past here and kind of have a bit of a meeting. And so we're just being patient and just seeing what else we can find. Tingana, as you can see, is still kind of tucking in with much relish. Adam all the time. So leopards lose their kills regularly to hyenas. If it's on the ground, then almost 99% of the time it will be lost out here. If it's on, you know, up in a tree, then not as much. But the thing is that they sometimes do drop them, and then if they drop them, generally hyenas steal them. The problem here is that because of the density of hyenas, and often what they do is that they'll follow leopard around, knowing that a leopard is quite a successful predator and hunter. They often find that, you know, as a leopard kills, hyenas are already on it. So it's much like what happened with Tingana last night. You know, he killed and didn't get much time at all. And so that's why they lose so many on the ground. What percentage it is, I really can't tell you. It's very tricky to know what percentage of these kills are lost because, you know, we don't really know a lot of the time that the kills have been stolen. We just find drag marks with hyena tracks, or we find, you know, bits of a carcass, and it's tough to measure how many times a leopard is actually stolen from, but I can promise you that it's more than you think. Leopards strike quite a lot, and things get stolen quite regularly. So not easy if you're a leopard. Life can be a little bit tricky, and it can be a bit tough to be able to actually find the food that you need and keep it away from these marauding guys here, especially in this part of the world. I suppose in the Mara it would also be quite like that. You know, you've got big clans of hyenas there that are very opportunistic. So a leopard's work is not done when it kills. It needs to still try and find trees quite quickly. Copel, will he put on much weight? I mean, in terms of actually like body mass, no, not really. His stomach will get massive, as you can see already. Look at how that stomach is swollen. It almost looks like he's pregnant. He's got such a big tummy. And, you know, that kind of size of his belly will fluctuate up and down almost daily depending on what is put in it. But his actual body size, no, he's not going to get more muscular because of this. He's, you know, he's about as fully grown as he's going to be at his age. He's already kind of, like I said, close to 12 years old, and so it would be very tricky to kind of for him to get much bigger. So no, this won't add just more muscle mass to him in terms of his overall bulk, but it certainly will increase his size of his stomach, and his muscles will be well fed effectively, and so they're not going to be, his body's not going to eat itself in order to get the nutrients that it needs. You can actually hear the crunching of the bones. Right, now, like I say, we'll continue with Tingana, see what happens. And while we do that, though, let's send you across to Sydney, who's looking at some rather damp vegetation.
Look at that. I can see that here by this tree, there's quite a very big difference. You can see that we did receive some rain last night and early this morning. There's evidence here such as this kind of drops. A half of bread is better than nothing. I am very sure that this rain that we are receiving now is making a very big difference. So apart from that, I want to tell you a story with regards to this kind of rain. While I was still very young, when there is a heavy thunderstorm at night, 12:30, 1 o'clock, midnight, they used to wake me up and my sisters and my brothers and say, go and collect the hail. When it's hailing outside, we used to go out and collect this hail and eat it. And they believe traditionally is that eating this hail is going to prevent us from getting flu. And it was working. So I was not attacked by a flu a lot while I was still very young. So every time the hail comes, we eat it in order to prevent flu long in advance. Just like a flu vaccine, hail can work the same. So I just want to taste this water here now. Oh, I lost that water. It doesn't taste bad. It is still neutral, just like the normal water. So this is a real natural water from the rain. I'm going to carry on now and see if I can find any of the interesting cats. Check it, Chunky Neck. The dry grass, it does have some nutrition, but it's not a lot. A lot of nutrition is right on the green grass. And the green grass helps quite a lot of animals. For example, the animals that has got a lot of a urine output must have to concentrate on a lot of green grass because the green grass is rich in protein. For examples, animals such as the waterbuck, they prefer the green grass because they've got quite a lot of high urine output. So the green grass has got high nutritious content and has got quite a lot of protein. The dry grass, the nutrition is not very dry. And now, by this time of the year, grasses hide the nutrients under the ground by the roots. So the dry grass on top doesn't have the nutrition. Nutrition is under the ground by the roots. That is why other animals such as the warthogs, they dig the ground a lot now in order to get hold of the nutrients by the roots, which serve as a storage organ for the nutrients during the dry season. The diseases such as mange, rain, yeah, it does help when it comes to some of the disease. Why? Because the rain brings back nutrition which then give the animals quite a lot of energy. So, but if you can check when it's dry, the diseases, animals, they battle a lot because if they don't have enough nutritious food, their body functioning cannot fight quite a lot of diseases. But soon as the vegetation changes and becomes nutritious, it gives the bodies quite a lot of energy to fight the diseases. Imagine now, during the dry season, with quite a lot of ticks, animals are losing quite a lot of blood and they are not getting quite a lot of nutrients. So you can see that the dry season, shortage of food also makes a very big difference. Very, very much quiet here by the cheetah cat line. This is the border I prefer the most in order to see if these cats are still in the property or not. But some of the trees now, I can see they are starting to grow back the leaves. So look at those trees, Senzo, the ones with the green leaves. This is amazing. You can see that there is some development taking place at the moment. So the only problem is that the trees which are starting to grow back the leaves, if you look at the gap between the ground and where the branches are starting is very high. So which means a lot of small browsing animals that feed on leaves, the small ones cannot be able to access these leaves. Only the tall ones such as the giraffes can be able to access there. which is also very good for the trees. So now let's go to Brent and hear what Brent is having at the moment.
Well, as you can see, it's grey and dreary out there, and the rain seems to be coming in waves, so it's not too bad at the moment, but it is coming through from time to time. Okay, so it seems like 90% of you wanted to talk about Gabon. And we have some answers about the quiz about Bioko Island. Tony says, I would say French Bigfoot. The Kulikamba? No, not a Kulikamba. But now if you look a bit more closely at Bioko Island, you can actually see some old volcanic craters. There's a volcano. There's another volcano. Oh, I've lost comms. It's my fault. I've sat on my volume button. Sorry. Baboons. That is close. It is a species of baboon. It is, and it only occurs here in the Reserve Scientifica de la Caldera de San Carlos. Ellie says pursuous baboons? No. It is a species of baboon. So there we go. You can see this is where they do a lot of the scientific research. And as you can see, that's a massive volcanic caldera. There are 3 big calderas on Bioko Island. And the other one is much, much bigger. And the main Bioko mountain has also a very big caldera. But also, you might notice that it's not a French-speaking island, is it? No. Even though it is directly off Douala, off Cameroon, it belongs to Equatorial Guinea, which is one of the only Spanish colonies, well, old Spanish colonies in Africa. So, as you can see, San Antonio, so there's a lot of Spanish words there. So, it's quite a difficult one, and it's not something you're going to get because it is a baboon. It is called a drill, but it is a subspecies of drill. It is called the Bioko drill. Now, a drill is of the same family as a mandrill. Let me just do this quickly. This mouse is giving me. So it looks similar to... There we go. It looks similar to a mandrill. However, they are a bit bigger. The females and the youngsters look quite similar. The males are quite different. Of course, mandrill's the one with the shiny bottom. He also has a shiny bottom. They do occur on mainland Africa as well, in Nigeria and in Cameroon. But they are one of the most endangered species in Africa. Probably less than 3,000 left in the wild. Bushmeat and also the illegal pet trade are 2 of the biggest threats to the drill. But the Bioko population, because it's been separated from the mainland population for so long, is a very, very, very interesting one. Now, their Latin name, he's smiling for you guys. The Latin name is mandrillus, so it starts the same as a mandrill, but the second part of the scientific name is leucophaeus, which basically means white and dusky. So white dusky baboon or mandrill baboon is what their name is. And obviously the white is referring to the white around the face. And the body is quite dusky. So there we go. That is something interesting. Okay.
That's a nice picture. That one. Look at this.
Chris, are there any big 5 in Bioko? Not that I'm aware of, Chris. I think there used to be forest elephants, but they've been locally extinct for quite some time. Most of the fauna and flora is quite small. There are leopards as well. Now, let's go down to where we're going to be chatting most about, Gabon. Now, Gabon is a very interesting country. It's a very small country compared to a lot of other African countries. And it's got a very small population. There's only 1.2 million people in the whole country. 800,000 of them live in Libreville. So the vast majority of the people live in the capital, Libreville. Now, right opposite the capital, Sebastian, do you remember what this area is called? I'm sure you spent a lot of time there as a teenager causing trouble. Point Denis. Yes. So Point Denis is here, and there's a lot of people who have holiday homes and stuff along the stretch of beach at Point Denis. Now, the most interesting thing about Point Denis and Pongara, which is a little bit further south, is it is the largest and longest stretch of leatherback turtle nesting in the world. So one of the most endangered turtles, they nest all along here. And strangely enough, we might even be able to see... No, it's not going to be clear enough. But one of the biggest threats to sea turtles in Gabon along their whole coast, which is very, very pristine in comparison to other parts of Africa and very undeveloped. One of the biggest problem is illegal logging that has happened in the past. So you've got some incredibly large rivers in this part of Africa. Of course, the Congo being by far the biggest. But there's the Agoy River. The Agoy River is the third largest river in Africa. So it is the Congo, the Nile, and then the Agoy. And most people don't know that. And in sort of colonial times, how to get the wood out of these thick places of forests and do it cheaply. And it's been done in the Klondike, in British Columbia, Alaska, and lots of parts of the States in the past use the river. So what happens is a lot of the logs were cut and cut near the big rivers, then pushed into the rivers and then floated down the rivers towards the sea where they could be easily grabbed at different ports and harbors. But what happens is a lot of that wood, especially from the past, escaped. So it has been washed out to sea and then washed back onto the beach. And one of the things is that it actually stops and inhibits turtle nesting, because they're these massive, I mean, when I say a massive tree, I mean, let's think, I mean, width-wise, wider than me, so 3 meters wide and 10 meters long or 20 meters long, depending on how they cut them, and it actually blocks up the beaches, which is a very big problem for the turtles that are nesting there. Now, Mike, yes, the Congo is much bigger than the Nile. We can have a quick look at the Congo River because it's not too far down here. If my mouse is ill. So we looked at the Agoy. Let's have a quick look at the Congo River. It is absolutely massive. The Congo River is the second biggest river in the world after the Amazon. It is incredibly, incredibly massive and deep. I can't remember its actual water flow. I will find out for you. But in certain parts, the Congo River is up to 2 kilometers deep. And the current is so strong, especially around these rapids. Here we go. You can see that massive river gets shoved into these incredibly large rapids. And what has happened, and also the current's so strong, and in these areas it's so deep, it's up to over 1 kilometer deep, that the fish have speciated. The small fish that can't fight the currents, little cichlids and tilapia species, have speciated. So they've come from one host species, and because the current is so strong, on either bank from one single species, they've become completely separate species, which is absolutely fascinating for me. Okay, well, maybe we'll talk about fish next. But while we think about what we're going to talk about next in the Congo Basin rainforests and Gabon, let's send you back to Tristan and Tingana.
I am still with Tingana. Like I said, I'll spend probably most of my morning with him, just given that he's in such a nice spot there. You can see some of the other vehicles are just starting to join us now. They are from the camp, and so they'll be pretty happy that they're going to actually be coming through and seeing a leopard up in a tree. A nice way to start a day for those that are out here and on a guided safari, and so very pleasant. Now Tingana is still just hoovering down this carcass, so he's eating like a leopard who has not eaten before, and is really kind of going at it. He's been picking off all the ribs, so he's broken off most of the ribs now, and he's just continuing to kind of make his way slowly through that section, which is quite common. You often see them eating the rib kind of areas and the back straps and then down to the legs. It's, you know, obviously the carcass itself was destroyed a little bit by hyenas long before kind of Tingana really got a chance to actually feed off it quite nicely. So, you know, it's unfortunately a little bit kind of mangled, but he looks like a happy cat, doesn't he? Well done, boy. And to steal it back from hyena is no mean feat. You probably find what happened is that he kind of initially got shocked by hyena coming, then he realized it's only one, and given his size and bulk, he decided, well, actually, I'm not going to take this nonsense from one of you, charged in, grabbed it, then put it up in the tree. It does happen with big male leopards like this. They often do steal their kills back. Hosana's still got a little bit to learn, and he's still a bit kind of nervous of charging, and we saw that with the bushbuck, how he just watched that hyena actually feed and didn't really get much back from it. So, you know, it will obviously kind of change as he gets bigger and bulkier and learns. He might then start to actually dominate, particularly a male hyena that's, you know, smaller than he is. If he's aggressive enough, he could potentially get his kill back. So, you know, Tingana will have to teach him those things. Needed a bit of a father-son bonding time, and it's quite cool that this particular tree we've had, you know, father and son sitting in it quite regularly, which is pretty awesome. So you might see a flash every now and then. That's just people that are taking photos, and a flash is actually not too bad. It's not going to worry this animal too much. So if you do see a bit of light, that's where it's coming from. Steph, chasing off hyenas is no small feat? No, not at all. It's always quite a win when a leopard can do that. Like I say, he's probably lucky that it was just one. If there was been two or three, there's no chance for him to have gotten it back, and he had to have done it early, because the more that hyena fed, the more that those others were going to arrive. And so luckily he kind of got it as quick as possible, pulled it out, and managed to kind of get it up into this tree before anything happened. So very, very fortunate that he's managed to still keep it, and very fortunate for us, because it means that we get to watch him now kind of feed off his kill over the course of the next day. Pretty sure he'll still be here probably tomorrow morning. You know, there's enough food on that carcass to keep him here probably the whole day today and then into tomorrow morning. It just depends on, you know, how hungry he is and how much food he actually wants, as to whether or not he really kind of is going to end up staying up there for keeping that food for kind of the whole day and into the night and tomorrow morning. But there's still a lot of food there, and the bigger his belly gets, the less he can actually fit in. So this is the biggest feed he'll have, is the kind of the initial one, and then it'll slow down a little bit over the course of the next day. But there goes another rib. Ribs for breakfast. Rosemary, do leopards burp? No, not as far as I know. Sometimes see that they kind of look as though they've eaten too quickly and almost get a bit of indigestion and kind of hiccups a little bit, but not burping. I've never heard a leopard do that at all. So no, I don't think so. Excuse the poll as well, by the way. We do have our rain roofs on. Of course, with the weather that we've got around, we can't really have these, or have left the lodge without these, so you're going to see a pole every now and then. But in terms of burping, no, never seen that. Maybe Brent has, but I doubt it. I mean, I've watched a fair number of leopards in my life and a fair number of feeding sessions, and never ever seen them burp or any of those kind of things, really. They seem to be quite good at the way that they feed, and have at least somewhat decent table manners. So Michelle, you say you can hear the crunches? Yes, I know. They are. It's quite interesting, isn't it? It's because he's feeding off those ribs, so he's just crunching through that bone at the moment. A lot of the meat around there has already gone. Now you'll see what he'll do is, often with the rib sections, he'll lick quite a bit. That rough tongue is going to scrape off all the little bits of meat off the bone itself, but because the bones are soft enough, he will also crunch those down. There's great nutrients in those as well, so you'll find that he will kind of get those down too, and try and kind of eat that and get that nutrients as well. So some of the bones will be too big, a bit of the spine and probably some of the skull, that's not going to be strong, or he's not strong enough to break that down with his jaws. But the rest, as for the legs and you know, the ribs, he'll definitely try to crunch that down. It's good marrow inside there, and therefore good nutrients for him to get. There you can actually hear as he kind of breaks the rib. I think he'll be quite happy that it's not very sunny today, because it would have gotten quite hot on that branch quite quickly. You can see there's absolutely no foliage, given that it's a dead tree. It would have been tricky for him to have had shade, and so his carcass is not only going to be easy to feed off in this weather, but it's also going to stay fresher for longer. It's definitely not going to get dry and crispy like the one that he ate the other day. So this is a far cry better than the last meal that we saw him having. Well, there goes a bird of prey with another bird in it. David, can you see? It's got carrying another bird. It's flown away, unfortunately, and this roof, it's almost impossible, but it flew off kind of past the back end of Tingana, but I didn't see exactly what it was, but it was definitely carrying another bird. So maybe something like a little sparrow hawk, that kind of size is what it was, but I didn't see exactly what it was carrying as it flew off, unfortunately, which is no good. What I did see, actually, funny enough, is not yesterday, the day before, on my way back to camp, I actually saw a black cuckoo. So they are back, and in weather like this, I wouldn't be surprised we start to hear them. They've got that eerie call, that's the I'm so sad call, and so we should be hearing those again. But it was definitely a black cuckoo flying around on quarantine, which was very, very nice, and plenty mosque swallows also on quarantine. So some of the migratory birds are coming, and with a front like this and a bit of rain, I reckon more of our cuckoo species are going to start to arrive fairly shortly, which is always quite wonderful. We'll hear them at least a lot more. Right, we still going to sit with Tingana. We're going to enjoy our morning with the Duke, and while we do that, though, let's send you back across to Sydney, who's still searching around for any of the other cats.
I am now by the Buffalo's Hook Dam in order to see if there is any activities taking place here. I can see there is nothing, and I was not led by any tracks to come here, so I'm just checking everywhere. Seems like animals are too excited with the rain. They are much more hiding deep in the thick bushes. Difficult this morning to find tracks, not even a single track, not even a hyena track, as I mostly rely on hyenas in order to find these big cats. So the hail that we usually get here is not that very big, but sometimes we do get some of the very big hails. But the one that we eat is not that very big. So hail doesn't taste bad, but the only problem is when we are collecting, we used to collect a lot, and sometimes they melt very quickly. So you must have to collect and eat same time. And it does get very cold sometimes here by the throat. Safari Sally, the dung beetles, they will come out when they are convinced that the rain is enough. You will see them. It won't take much. It's just that now these are just the beginning of some rain, but after a very heavy rain, you will see them getting excited. The thing is, the insects, they wait until the soil is moisturized, because this kind of dung beetles, they must have to be able to bury the balls. When the ground is still, when the surface is still very dry, it's not going to help them to come out early, because they won't be able to dig easily in order to hide away their balls. So they must have to first wait until the rain is enough and the soil is moisturized so that they can easily do their operations. So the dung beetles, those are my favorite insects. You know, dung beetles, I saw that they are even going to be used in order to rehabilitate the old mining areas. Imagine such a very small insect having such a very significant role. Interesting, eh? Every day we see dung beetles and we don't realize all these benefits we are getting from them. So I like those giant dung beetles, the ones that land on their back. no tracks at all. So I am now heading back to the central area and see if we can find something. But this is normal, because if the animals that normally get hunted are excited by the moisture on grasses, if the activities of the prey are not too much, that also affect the activity patterns of the predators. So it means where these prey are grazing is where the predators must be looking around. So now let's go back to my favorite cat, Tingana, with Tristan, who is feeding at the moment. I will try by all...
Well, yes, back to your favorite cat, Sydney, who's making a little piggy of himself. He's sausaging as best he can today. He's making sure that his sausage is well filled, and then he can go and be a proper sausage, probably down on the ground at some point. So he's still kind of munching away, and it's amazing just how much these cats can put away. And it's also incredible to watch how his stomach grows. As we sit here, you can see his stomach is stretching a little bit more. He's still got some more room. If you look on his belly, you see there's a little flap of skin there. Do you see it? Where its tummy is stretched before. So that's still got to stretch out a little bit more. So he's still got some space in there. There's still about an inch of room where that tummy can expand a little bit further and some more meat can go in. So he still has room for more. Surprisingly enough, you would think after eating for as long as he has, when you compare domestic animals, when they eat, you'd think that if they ate for this long they would be little pork sausages. And well, Tingana, while he has filled up a little bit, still has more space. And yes, he is also a pork sausage, and he will get bigger and bigger, and he kind of has mastered the art of being a sausage in a tree. I remember there was one time where he was so full, I can't remember what he ate, but maybe it was the times he had those 2 wildebeest kills, but he ate himself to the point where literally you could not even see it didn't even look like he had proper legs. His legs looked too short for him completely. It looked as though they were kind of up to his elbows, because his tummy was just sort of enveloped around this branch with his big dewlap and his neck. It literally just looked like this nose. And I don't know if any of you have seen those cartoons of those inflatable animals that bounds around, and there's the leopard that falls out the tree. He literally did look like that. It looked like this small little face with his nose and these eyes, and then this long tubular shape with a tail that was stuck into it. And the legs themselves, like I say, looked completely too short for him, because he was just so full, and kind of the way he was sitting on the branch, everything was just squashed up, and he really did look exactly like a little sausage in a tree. It was quite funny actually to watch him at that day, and eventually kind of obviously he digested out and he looked normal again. But it was the whole morning he kind of looked completely ridiculous sitting up in the tree, and looked very sorry for himself for the most part as well, that he was so full. I think it was in the summer months as well, because those wildebeest, it must have been just beginning of summer, and it was a hot day, and he just didn't really look as though he was very comfortable at all. I thoroughly enjoyed it though. I thought it was highly entertaining to kind of watch him go about it. But you can see now he's just opening that carcass out a little bit, and he's going to go down the other side of the kind of rib cage, and there's still quite a bit of meat in there, which is really good news for him. There's also a little bit of skin and sinew, and those are all going to be good things for him to eat. Scott, so you're asking when he's done and he leaves it, what will happen to the carcass? Well, there won't be a carcass when he leaves, normally. Sometimes, like the other day, for some strange reason, he left it and moved off. But generally, they just eat everything, and what they don't eat, they drop. So as he kind of eats through the legs and through the neck and those kind of things, so you start to see him kind of dropping little pieces, and then things like hyenas obviously come in and they'll kind of clean that up. So there should be nothing left here by the time he's done. Maybe just a set of horns that the hyenas carry away. I wouldn't be surprised if anything does fall and Corky or Pretty are around, that it gets carried back to the den, and you might find this impala skull actually back at the hyena den in the next few days. It does happen quite regularly. It's quite funny actually when you see a carcass and then you see the bits of it at the den in the following days, particularly things like buffalo. If hyenas get into buffalo carcasses, then you'll start to see kind of legs and all kinds of things falling down. Now a little piece dropped down, so I'm surprised that, where's the hyena gone? Is it still here? No, it looks like it's walked off. Oh well, that's its hyena's lost. There was some stuff that landed on the floor there. I didn't know what. It looked like it might have been a bit of stomach content, but normally when there's something that falls from these trees, when there's a leopard involved, the hyenas are in there like a flash to go and sniff about and grab whatever there is, so as that they can make sure they can get a bit of nutrients out of it as well. What are you doing, Tingana? It's just repositioning it slightly. Isn't this cool though? Very seldom we get to see a leopard kind of feeding at the same eye level as you do, or as that we are, particularly when it's up in a tree. You know, it's normally looking up at it, so it's always quite nice to be on the same sort of plane. Anyway, back to Brent in the tent, who's still on about Gabon and various other things, and so I'm sure you're all quite interested to hear what he's got to say next.
Welcome. We're trying. We found a hoho. And for those who don't know what a hoho is, it's a South Africanism for a bug. A hoho or a nunu. And it's a nunu that we actually saw quite a lot of in Gabon. And he is mobile, which is making him a bit more difficult. Oh, no, where's he gone? Oh, he's fallen. There we go. Don't run away, don't run away. Quickly, quickly to the microscope. Quickly, 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 quickly. There he is. Oh, no, he's off. He's off, he's off, he's off. It's a little armored cockroach. Let's try find him again.
No, he's to your left, bottom left.
Bottom left.
Yeah,
there he is. He's being difficult. There he is. You can see he's got quite heavy armored plating. So let me just try focus. No, come back, come back. Oh, yeah, I dropped the microscope. Oh, and now he's not moving. Okay, give me a second. No, stay. Oh, he's gone. No, he's gone. But you could see he's got quite nice little armored plating on his back. Oh, there he goes. Oh, he's too quick for me. I'm going to try to cut him off so he walks into frame. See, Seb, I listened to cameraman. There he goes. He didn't want to be in frame too much. So he's a little armored cockroach, and he's got quite heavy plating on his back, and obviously that's to protect him. And in Gabon is probably the place I've seen the most species of cockroaches, particularly those armored cockroaches. You could get them that were as big as my hand. And strange enough, an antelope used to eat them. Quite a few different antelope, actually. Quite a lot of your forest dicat that live in the Congo Basin rainforests are omnivores. They'll actually eat baby birds, eggs, millipedes, cockroaches, other insects. And it's quite fascinating to watch. We got some really good stuff on camera trap. Now, to give you an idea what it's like in Gabon, I went back into the history of my photographs, and that is me in a tree. So that's what it's like in the forest. So it is very, very thick. And you can see my calves were about twice the size they are now, because I used to walk about 60 k's a day in quite tough terrain. So that is a massive tree. So, I mean, the ground isn't even in the bottom of that photograph. So I'm probably about 5 meters up, and that tree went on for another 30 or 40 meters out of the canopy. Those buttresses are really, really fascinating. So chimpanzees, I'll do it over here. That's the best I can do since I don't have a buttress. So the chimpanzees, if they found a fruiting tree or something like that, to communicate with the rest of the community, and that's what you call a group of chimpanzees. Often they'll forage in little groups, but the main community can be up to 100 chimpanzees in that community. But if they find a really, really, really rich food source, like a fruiting fig or a fruiting manilkara tree, they'll get on those buttresses, and it's not going to make the same noise as it, Sebastian, but they go, and they actually drum on the buttresses to let the rest of the community know that there's food available, and that'll bring the chimps in. So when we heard that noise when we were walking in the forest, we got quite excited, because we knew we're probably going to have a really awesome chimpanzee sighting. But there's so many fascinating creatures there. The plant and insect life. Oh, I've turned Emma down again. Good question by James Richard. How many bird species are endemic to Gabon? I don't think any. If I remember correctly, I don't think there are any endemic to Gabon, because that rainforest habitat extends south into the Republic of Congo, it extends east into Cameroon and the Central African Republic, north into Equatorial Guinea, and into Cameroon as well. So endemic bird species, if I remember correctly, there weren't any. But there are some really, really cool bird species. One, which was I've only heard and I didn't see. What I will do is I'll get my big bird book next segment, because it's just in the camp, is called a lyre-tailed honeyguide. I think I've got their call, and I'm going to ask you a very funny question about this now, and I want you to tell me how this bird is making the sound. I want you to tell me how the lyre-tailed honeyguide makes the sound. You hear that? Boop, 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 boop. How does the lyre-tailed honeyguide make that sound? Hashtag SafariLive if you can figure it out. It's quite a tricky one. Now, I did see someone watching me. Then I went to try look for some hohos. And I think let's go this way, Seb. Sorry, taking you round and through all the tent guide ropes. It's raining a bit harder now, but there is a large male giraffe who was staring into the tent while the lyre-tailed honeyguide was going. He's now decided that we're not that interesting. I always hope while I'm at the tent that Hassana comes to visit. I think, yes, I was the first person to get a leopard from the tent, and it was Karula in the rain many, many moons ago. You can hear the pitter-patter of raindrops. We can't keep the camera out in the rain for too long, so we're going to scurry back towards shelter. Okay. And we're going to take the retired giraffe with us. Okay, well, while I set up the retired giraffe for its moment of fame, let us send you back to Tristan and Tingana, who's still stuffing his face.
Indeed he is, Brent Leo Smith. He is still gulping down vast quantities of meat. I don't think he's very particularly happy right now, though. It's raining on him and there are monkeys shouting at him, and so between the two of them I don't think he's going to be up for that much longer. He actually tried to move the kill, but the horn's so wedged in there it made it very difficult. You can see he's looking around at the monkeys. You might be hearing them in the background. And so they're making a lot of noise, which generally leopards do not like when they're being shouted at, and particularly if it's rain and being shouted at, then they really are very unhappy about the whole thing. So you'll find that I'm pretty sure he's going to start thinking about heading down and heading towards maybe some sort of cover where he doesn't have to kind of worry about this rain nearly as much as what he is right now. There's also a bit of a monkey fight that's going on at the moment. So we're seeing, I can hear in the background, sounds like a couple of the monkeys are having a bit of a go at each other, which is not surprising. Baby monkeys sometimes get a little naughty and they get disciplined then by the adults. Now, there's no hyenas to kind of keep him up in the tree, so I wouldn't be surprised he just drops straight down and just finds himself a little thicket in which to kind of curl up in. Or he's going to groom his paws for a little bit first. Thingy, are you going to clean up and lie on the branch for us? It'd be very nice if you did. Such a nice kind of spot that he's in. Really is quite special to kind of watch a big cat up in a tree like this. being quite meticulous as he goes about his grooming session. Now this generally means that he's going to kind of prep himself for a bit of a nap. Now whether that's on the ground or in the tree remains to be seen. I'm pretty sure it's going to be on the ground given the conditions and the tree that he's in. I don't think you're going to see a Tingana that wants to kind of stay up in that tree for too long in the rain. You know, cats are a little bit allergic to the rain, as we know, and so I might assume that he is actually going to move off and go and find himself a better spot to lie down. Well, Michael, it took a while. I mean, it wasn't that difficult as per se, but it took some time because Tingana just didn't really want anything to do with us. He just wanted to kind of do his own thing. But as soon as females came along, well, that changed his whole kind of way that he was with us. He kind of had females move into the area and he had to mate, and then a few kills later and he was kind of, you know, having to kind of deal with us and cope with our nonsense. Now, of course, the pole will be right in the way of his head. Are you joking? No. There he goes. I'm pretty sure he's going to go and find himself a nice little spot to go and rest, as it would normally be with Tingana. He might go and actually have a bit of a drink. Sometimes when they've finished eating, they will go and have a bit of a drink and kind of get some water. But you can see he's quite round at the moment. He's got a full belly. Well done, boy. It's a nice size carcass that he managed to pull down, so I'm not surprised that his belly is quite full. But yeah, it wasn't too bad actually. I mean, like I say, it took a few kind of mating sessions and a few kills, and then we actually we got it all right with him. And he kind of, are you really going to stick your head into a bush like that? He is giving nobody anything right now. He said, enough, I've posed for you enough on a beautiful tree. It's now up to all of you to actually kind of just deal with the fact that I'm going to shove my head into this spot here and take it very easy and rest. And maybe it's because of the rain. He's just trying to find himself somewhere where the rain's not kind of falling on him as much, but he's chosen a very poor tree. There's really not much cover there at all. There's a bit of a quarry thicket, but other than that, there really isn't much that is protecting him. But I can hear the rain is starting to fall quite heavily now, so I wouldn't be surprised he moves again. Minamu, I'm not sure I really understand your question. How do leopards cope during a drought? Well, we've watched them cope for the last 2 years. They absolutely thrive during droughts generally because they're able to catch all kinds of things because other animals get weak. And luckily for them in places like this, there is water that is often pumped at pans throughout the reserves. So not even here, but in the Kruger as well. There's a few pumped reserves and quite a few big rivers. And so, you know, they might have to walk a little bit further than they did in the summer months or in the wetter years, but they survive just fine in the drought. In fact, they can often thrive given the fact that other animals like the antelope species become quite weak, and so it's easier for them to be able to find food. Now, what is that across the way? Is that a nyala? Or is it a hyena? No, it's a hyena. So straight across onto that side over there is a hyena that is slowly coming this way. A very wet hyena. You can see the rain that is tumbling down in the distance. That hyena's busy looking. I'm pretty sure that hyena can spot that carcass from where it is already, if it's not the same one that was already here. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see the hyenas starting to kind of arrive back. But it's definitely starting to rain quite a bit, so we're not going to move too much at all. At least being here with Tingana allows us to sit quite still and not have to risk our equipment too much. Everything can stay fairly dry when it's like this, and so we can kind of keep all the flaps down and at least have a view of a leopard and, well, hyenas also around. And so who else knows what is going to come? Right, while we sit and watch the rain fall, I believe Sydney is driving, and so he must be getting a little bit damp, which I do feel sorry for him, but hopefully he'll be rewarded with something very, very nice.
I am right now by the Muluwati dry riverbed to see if I can find something here, but all I'm seeing is some fresh elephant tracks. So the elephant has been here, so but not something that happened last night. As I can see that the tracks already has been disappeared by this kind of drizzling that we are getting now. So here by the dry riverbed, there's quite a lot of drizzling at the moment. So I'm just gonna keep going down this drainage line and see if we're gonna find any convincing evidence here. So only the elephant tracks at the moment, no cat tracks and dogs. So here by this dry riverbed is where there's quite a lot of green trees, the green trees on the side. So these elephants, they come these green trees. Yeah, the rain is increasing a little bit here. Maybe we're gonna be lucky with these elephants. Yeah, the rain is becoming very strong at the moment. I can smell these elephants here. This elephant has been here just now, where I am. And the tracks are all going much more towards the northern side. So there's just tracks everywhere. It seems like it has been a very big head. So now, let's go back to Brent, who is having something interesting for you.
We're talking about the lyre-tailed honeyguide. Just trying to get some lights for Sebastian. There we go. So there, that is the lyre-tailed honeyguide. One of my nemesis birds, because I could hear them doing that wonderful display above the canopy. Hide that, so the answer's there, Sebastian. Bald Council says they make that noise with enthusiasm. They do. It is a display, so they are very enthusiastic, although I've never seen it. I've just heard it, staring up at the great green expanse above my head. Kersel says with its voice box, it is not. It doesn't make any of the sounds, that particular sound with its voice box. Well, let's see. It's actually a combination of things. Ah, Susie's on the right track. Not its legs and its tail, but its tail does play part of it. So let's have a look. Jumping. No, Mary, it is not jumping. So what they do is they fly up above the canopy. They spread that big lyre-shaped tail and some of the wings. They don't open their wings. They close their wings mostly. And they'll fly very high above the forest canopy, and then they drop like a stone. And as they drop and they spin with one little wing out and that tail, it's the sound of the wind as they're dropping going through their feathers. Whoop, 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 whoop. And of course, quite a lot of forest bird species have really intricate sort of mating displays. And it is because the forest is so big and so thick, it's really hard to find a girlfriend. So you've got to get above the forest, make a lot of noise, and hope the girls come to you. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions about rainforests is that they are constantly full of animals and birds, which is not true. So they're actually, you have to find bird parties and they move. You can go through lots of patches of forest where it's very, very quiet, and all you can hear is the cicadas and the insects. Lots of insect noise all the time, but large mammals and birds occur in sort of thickets of the species or of mixed species rather than all over the place. And the forests, you would think there's a lot more food than looking out at this dry landscape behind us. There's not, because there's no grass, and grass is one of the best foods. There are patches of open savannas close to the beach, and when the swamps drop, the animals will flood to that area to feed on the grasses as the water recedes during the dry season. But most forest animals have to travel big distances to find enough food, and especially the forest elephants. So they can cover massive, massive distances. And the best way to get around in a rainforest? Walk down an elephant path. However, you've got to be quite careful, because you often find elephants on said path. And one of the biggest dangers, and you've seen us walk with elephants here quite comfortably quite often, is the fact that you can't see much further than 5 meters. So I've often come around a corner in a forest and seen an elephant where Sebastian is. So what's that? 1, 2 meters away. And then you sort of do this. And try to find a big tree to stand behind. Now, a lot of people think forest elephants are a lot more aggressive. Let me just grab my... than savanna elephants. I do not believe this is the truth. Their eyesight definitely isn't as good as the savanna elephants, due to the nature of the forest they live in. So to give you an idea, so this is on a swamp that's dry now during the dry season, but that's what the forest canopy looks, or the thick forest looks like behind. But as I said, I don't think forest elephants are any more aggressive than savanna elephants. I just think people surprise them at very close distances. Okay, I wanted to show you why I say that. Here we go. That's me and a forest elephant. He knows I'm there. I'm talking. I'm letting him know I'm there. And he was completely fine. It's open. He's got a lot of places he can escape. He knows exactly where I am. So unlike when you meet them in that thick forest like behind, where they get a fright more than anything else. And also, I've noticed that most people in that part of the world react the wrong way to elephants. Everyone just scatters and runs. I had to hold a few people when we were getting warning charges from elephants in the forest as they charge towards you, and everyone tries to just go in every direction. I'm not going to say names, I had a French lady, a researcher, by one arm this side, and I had a Gabonese tracker by the other arm this side. I'm like, don't run! And this elephant is charging from where Sebastian is. So I'm trying to, hey, stop the elephant charging while keeping these 2 people who are trying to rabbit into the bush away. So again, if you treat the elephants exactly the same as you do with the savanna elephants, you should be fine. Now, of course, I had that very unlucky situation where I got up close and personal with a forest elephant, but we'll discuss that story a little later, because Sydney has found something interesting.
I've just got something very interesting at the moment. I'm not too sure what has happened here. Look at this animal. I can see that there is an animal just lying down here, and to me this looks like a male nyala. So this nyala looks dead. I'm not sure what has happened. What I'm going to do now is that I'm going to get off and try to see if maybe I can see the evidence. I'm not too sure if maybe this was as a result of predation or it was just a natural death. So I'm just going to walk up there and see if there is any evidence linking this death to any of the predators. So here where I am, I'm not seeing any of the tracks, and this looks very fresh. This is not old. And it has been a very big nyala. not seeing any of the tooth marks, nothing. So this animal battled a little bit to climb up here. So maybe it was just a natural death. So, but no sign of the hyenas, no sign of the cat. It was quite a very big nyala when looking at these horns. So maybe there will be some activities here during the day of the animals that prefer to scavenge, such as the hyenas. But so far it's quite very difficult to tell what exactly has happened here. No tracks of any predators here. And I can see the tracks for this nyala here on the ground, so that this is not long time ago. It's apparently this morning. So the hyenas are not aware about this maybe at the moment. Soon as they pick up the updates, they will come here and try and to investigate for their meal. So in the bush, nothing is wasted. So the death of these animals it becomes a bonus to the other animals, and that is how it works. There's quite a very big dependency between the predators, the prey, and the scavengers. Kim, maybe it's a broken neck, or maybe it was as a result of the old age. It's very much difficult to tell because that animal looks in a very, very good condition there. So, but I can see that this animal battled to climb up. Maybe the animal got injured somewhere else and then suddenly arrived and died here. It was a very beautiful nyala. I am not very sure if the animals such as the nyalas can survive that kind of a disease. Maybe, but by this time of the year, it's not when the animals are dying a lot. Oh, lions. Can you see the lions? Hey, now we're lucky with one of the big cats. I can see the lions here lying down by the Twins Dam. So I'm just approaching now. Oh, we are very much lucky, unexpectedly. So these lions are not even aware about the death of the nyala in the area, which is not very far away from where they are. Oh, this is quite a very big pride. Oh, quite a lot of them here. Oh, we are very lucky people. We are very, very lucky people. This is a lovely sighting. Maybe these lions are going to find out about the death of the nyala that we have just saw now. Are you okay there, Senzo?
Sure.
My apologies for the poll. We have got a roof today due to these rains. So look at that. This is quite a lovely sighting. Unexpectedly. Very difficult to see their tracks on the ground this morning due to this little bit of rain. So I'm trying to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that is very true. The thing is that Nyala, the death is still very much fresh and nothing is open there at all. So I don't think they will pick it up now. And the weather is very good. It's not very hot, because when it's hot, it's very easy for the body to get decomposed very quickly. But now, when the weather is like this, then it's going to take time. But these kind of cats are well gifted. They might find out about that. So, but looking at the bellies, these animals, their bellies are full. I don't think they are interested in hunting activities. Look at that. Good morning, all stations. This is Sydney. I am here by Twins Dam. I have got a pride of lions. You are more than welcome. I thank you. So you can see that now these lions are just resting. Look at that. Now that is true. These are the inkuhumas. So I can see that these inkuhumas, all of them are just tired and their bellies are full. Not few of them's bellies are full. All of them, their bellies, I can see that they are full at the moment. And they are very much camouflaged with this kind of weather. The grass with this little bit of drizzle on them looks exactly the same like this lion color. So let's hope this lions sleeps here for the whole day so that we can see what they are thinking about to do in the afternoon. They are not very far away from the border. So now let's go back to Tristan with Tingana.
We are still with Tingana. I'm just going to move slightly for David because this pole is right in our way at the moment, so we're just going to try and kind of figure that out and try not to be dribbled on by the rain, because it's just dripping right down my right sock and into my shoe, which is not so pleasant at all. But we'll just dodge that bullet quickly and move out the way slightly. But as you can see, Tingana has decided to have a nice nap, which I didn't kind of think anything else would happen, to be honest. But what's interesting is that while we've been sitting here, Taxon just radioed and said that he just found a massive dead nyala in the Mulwati area, and it's very, very close to where Sydney is with those lions. And so I wonder if the lions might find it. It's not going to smell very much this morning because of the dampness in the air, but apparently it's just kind of below where the lions are at Twin Dams. And so I'm hoping that those lions will head there for Sydney, and you'll kind of see them feeding on that nyala. But I'm quite intrigued as to know what happened to the nyala. It's quite random to have a big male nyala just dead. They sometimes can fight with one another and injure and kill each other. It does happen, you know, never know, maybe a little broken neck, or might even be some sort of puncture wound from a horn, or maybe it's unfortunately succumbed to some sort of ailment. I don't know, but very interesting to find. And nyala is a big creature, so that would be a hefty meal even for those 6 lions. You never know who else might be around. Maybe Hosana was involved there somewhere and is now just kind of hiding out because the lions are there. I don't know, but it's interesting either way, and hopefully, like I say, the mystery of what happens will be solved by Sydney, because it's a little too close for us to head off there. We would literally be right on top of Sydney, and if those lions moved, you know, it would be a bit of a problem. But I'm pretty sure they'll kind of find it eventually during the course either of today, well, hopefully this morning, but I'm pretty sure during the course of today or this evening they will find it. If not, hyenas will, and the noise they make will certainly attract the lions in, so I'm pretty sure the lions are going to win that war. Ivy, yes, I do. I don't shy away from the fact that I love to spend time with these spotted cats, and so thoroughly do enjoy spending time with leopards. I'm surprised, to be honest, that Hosana is not here. I would have expected him to be here. He was at Trias Dam yesterday morning, last night with Brent, and sniffing about and doing his thing, and therefore he must have kind of smelt Tingana, and I wonder if he's going to move up this way. Well, that's what I thought anyway, but it seems as though he has decided he is not going to come this side just yet. And it always surprises me when there's a kill and Hossan is not around, because we've become so kind of familiar with him being associated with meals, even if dad or sister has also been in the area. So I'm surprised in that regard, but you never know. I mean, he could arrive any minute now. The hyena that we saw earlier is sleeping way in the distance, also having a bit of a nap. I think everybody's kind of got bed weather on the brain at the moment, and so everyone's just finding a spot to kind of rest. I hear that the hyena den is also not active at the moment, so maybe everybody's just having a little bit of a sleep in, and I can't blame them, to be honest. It's not exactly nice weather to be out and about. It's rainy and cold and a bit windy, and therefore not ideal. What is amazing is the speed at which the clouds are moving today. So, from this angle we can kind of sit here and we can see that the clouds in front of us are kind of just racing along at a rate of knots. And so this front, I'm not sure where it's coming from. Brent will know, because he told me he looked at the satellite map this morning and he said by about 10 o'clock we get a huge bank of cloud that comes over, a big storm that comes over. But you can actually see the movement in those clouds as how quickly they're racing past at the moment. And so whatever is driving this system, it's doing it rather quickly, and hopefully that means that it will come in rain and then be out of here very quickly. I have no problem with the rain. I just hate when it lingers, and when it's like this. I like thunderstorms. Thunderstorms can rain and be done with, but when it hangs around and rains for days on end, I find it depressing, and it's not ideal at all. So hopefully this doesn't last too long. Hopefully we get some good rain, and then the sun can come out and the vegetation will grow, and things will be all beautiful again. This kind of weather is really not ideal. It reminds me of being in London, and that was a hard 8 months, to be honest. I thoroughly detested the weather while I was there. I also didn't do myself any favors when I went and lived in London, is because I arrived there in the end of September, which obviously is not a good time to be arriving in the Northern Hemisphere, as you kind of delve into winter, and then proceeded to spend the next 8 months all through winter there, which was damp, wet, cold, and unlike the South African summer that I was used to. So was not ideal. But anyway, rainy days like this always remind me of that, and like I say, I was thoroughly miserable in that rain. It's not good for one's soul to take them out of Africa and then make them sit in rain for a whole month. I remember the month of November, which for me is always a good month, because here in the kind of South African region, or particularly up here, it's summer, which means it's bright and sunny generally and warm, and you might get the odd thunderstorm, but generally it's nice and warm. And so I'm always kind of associate that month with this kind of weather. And then, in London it was, we saw the sun once in 30 days, which was depressing to say the least. You start to lack vitamin D, and then you go pale white like a little ghost, and really not ideal at all. So I'm quite glad that this kind of So Emma, who's in final control, says, wow, it must be hard to be pale. Now, Emma always makes jokes because she says she's pale. So don't worry, Emma. I can at least feel your pain. It's not exactly like I'm the most tan person, Emma. I've got a lot of English blood in me, which means that I'm pretty pale too. It's just that I spend so much time outside that my skin's got no choice but to take on a slightly darker tone. Now, our hyena is actually on its way down by the looks of things. It's slowly starting to waddle its way to us. So it's coming down just on the left there, Dave. No, David's not going to be able to see it. Hold on, David. Let's just straighten out for you so we can see the hyena coming down. There, you should be able to see it now. There it comes. So it's heading this way. I think it's trying to see if there's any kind of sign of Tingana that's around, and maybe that if there's some scraps that it can get. Let's see if it will make its way all the way down. Of course, it's going to walk to the left. Really, hyena? Turn, come our way. Turn. It's going to walk past the roof and where the pole is. Watch. Oh, there we go. Good hyena. Finally, a listening hyena to us, because we've had a struggle with hyenas. Well, I have, like I say, in terms of trying to get to the den and actually get it active. But finally, one is actually taking some note and listening to what we've got to say. But typical kind of lope that they have. I love the way that they walk, this kind of bouncy little walk that they've got with these floppy paws that sort of flick forward. And what's quite funny is in the Mara, some of those hyenas there are hilarious because they generally are so fat, some of them, from eating so much, particularly now at this time of the year with the wildebeest and there's so many carcasses around, that they actually almost, some of them look like they don't have legs. So we're talking about Tingana doing a sausage reenactment, and you'll find with hyenas that they sometimes can be the same, where they get so big and fat, and particularly in the Mara because they're so fluffy, it just looks like their legs are not really the right size. And I remember seeing one in particular whose back legs looked like somebody had gone and cut them and made them far too short, and it kind of had to keep walking with its back sort of bummed down, much like when they get chased by wild dogs. It was quite funny to watch. And then on top of that, had to kind of see the way this poor hyena had to keep sitting. It couldn't kind of, you know, most hyenas, if they sit, they'll kind of lie down, but this one sat almost like a dog with its back legs down, because I suppose it was just comfortable. The legs were so short that it could just kind of plonk its bottom down. And that was the end of that. But it was very funny to watch, a very odd-looking creature. And I think somebody else had a really big fat hyena with short legs. I can't remember who it was, but it was hilarious to kind of see. Now, you can see what this hyena is doing is it's just doing a slow kind of mill about, trying to just spot what's going on and see whether or not Tingana is around and where he's actually lying, so that it doesn't walk into him, because he's not in the tree. So he'll know, well, this hyena will know that there's no leopard in the tree itself, which means the leopard must be lying somewhere close by. And so what it's doing is just doing a little roundabout scouting, just to try and check where it is, so as that it doesn't walk straight in to that leopard itself. Tingana doesn't care at all. He's got his head up, but is really not worried by what is going on at this stage. There you go, you can see. What are you watching, Tingy? So I believe a lot of you are trying to ID this hyena, and I'm not sure. I must be honest, I have no idea, to be honest. I was just looking at it now thinking I'm not sure who this is. So if you guys are struggling, well, then that always makes me feel a little bit better. I would imagine maybe it's one of the newer males that's around. I mean, it's difficult how far it is, but we'll see when it gets a little bit closer if maybe we can get a better kind of spot pattern on what's going on. But you can see it's just kind of crossing right behind the bush where Tingana is, and I'm pretty sure it's going to do a very wide berth around. Anyway, we'll sit here, we'll see whether it gets closer, we'll see if Tingana reacts, and in the meantime, let's send you back across to Sydney and those lions and see if they make their way towards that Nyala.
I have got the Unkuhuma pride here at the moment, the pride that sometimes gives Tingana some challenges. So this pride, I can see now, they are not very far away from where that Nyala carcass is. When this lioness stood up earlier, heading towards this direction, I thought now the lioness is well updated, knows very well there's a dead animal. Now I can see that these cats might move towards where the Nyala carcass is at any time. They are not very far. And the weather, the condition this morning is suitable for them to walk around. So, Lisa, I didn't get your question very nicely. If you can repeat that, the FC. So, Lisa, that is something I must have to check, if this cat has got the two sets of eyelids, as now I can see he's looking towards another direction. So I can only see some of the eyelashes there. He doesn't want to look at me. Maybe he's going to look at me, then we can confirm that. You can see now the eyes are closed. So when the eyes of these cats are closed, right on top you will see they've got some false eyes. So it's like they can still see what is happening when they are sleeping, whereas they are not seeing anything. You can see the black tips behind the ears, nice and clear. Look at that. So those are the kind of tips they use when they are communicating. So they can easily communicate below their prey's hearing ability. Now this is a beautiful shot. Thank you very much, Senzo. So you can see that this cat is looking at the back. So the other ones are right there. You can see one is there behind the bushes and another one is right in the middle. So the rest, they are far behind. So you can see that these kind of cats, like the one that we were just seeing now, has got quite a lot of scratches. This tells you these females are the ones responsible for doing the hunting activities. So they're experiencing quite a lot of challenges during these hunting activities. So they get scratched from the trees and sometimes they fight as well. So now let's go back to my other colleagues and hear what they are up to at the moment.
Here we go. Tristan asked me to show you what was happening with the weather. So you can see why I really like this is because it also shows me the prevailing winds. So there's that big patch of rain where it's blue there. And you can see we've got this wind all coming off the east coast, off the beach. So it's not a good day to be on the beach. That's about Swidwana Bay there. And you see there's two systems pushing in. There's a little gap around the Mozambique Channel. But there you can see we've got this system pushing the weather onto us and this system pushing the weather onto us. So from the forecast at how the winds are going to blow throughout the day, eventually this heavier blue patch should push on to where we are there. Now, quite interesting what I've been thinking about, and Sydney's Inyala, that Inyala carcass he found. Now, most likely, if I had to take a gander at what has caused that mortality, there's a natural mortality. It's a big Inyala bull. It's probably the cold snap. We got quite cold and windy last night. The rain's around, so the cold winds, if it's an older animal, and also remember we're right at the end of the dry season, it is not uncommon to find natural mortalities like that at this time of the year. However, it could be something a little bit more sinister. And we will go have a proper look. I think this afternoon I'll go have a proper look at that carcass to make sure that it is not the more sinister option, which is anthrax. Now, anthrax, everyone thinks letter bomb and all that type of stuff. Anthrax is naturally occurring in this area. We've got two different strains that occur through the Greater Kruger, one up north and one in the center region. And generally, the anthrax outbreaks will happen when it is very dry. So as we're experiencing at the moment in the dry season, and the spores can stay dormant for hundreds of years. And they can live in bones, they can live in the soil, and most animals will contract anthrax from either eating minerals, so salt licks, things like that, where the spores might have been quite deep under, but now in the dry season they've been dug up, also water holes. Now, the two biggest carriers and spreaders of anthrax in the Greater Kruger, the most obvious one is vultures. They are completely immune to the effects of the anthrax spores. And they are able to eat anthrax carcasses with no effect. How those spores now get into and contaminate water supplies is vultures will very often, after feeding off a carcass, go land at a water hole and bathe in that water hole. And they can shed hundreds of thousands of anthrax spores that they've contracted from the carcass into the water hole. So the most affected animals in this area are kudu, inyala, waterbuck, and buffalo. So that's why when you see a dead inyala at this time of the year, it's more than likely a cold snap, judging on the weather, but you've always got to be careful. It could possibly be anthrax. One of the signs of anthrax is there'll be a mucousy, a hemorrhagic mucus discharge from the nose and mouth. So there will be sort of snot and slime, but It won't be full of blood, but you will be able to see blood particulates in it. And the same goes for the anus and the ears. You might find blood coming out of both of those from the anthrax virus. So it does happen quite regularly during the dry season. And kudu, buffalo, nyala, and waterbuck are the 4 species that are most affected by it. Now, all members of the order Carnivora, hyenas, lions, leopards, and stuff, seem to be completely immune, and they can feed off carcasses that have been affected by anthrax without any ill effect to them. So you've got to be a bit careful, especially at this time of the year. It's very dry. The Inyala could have inadvertently kicked up some anthrax spores. Now, as I said, everyone thinks letter bomb and whatnot. No, that's weaponized anthrax. Most anthrax is not a threat to human beings as long as you're not touching and picking up and playing with a carcass or eating a carcass. The only record of anthrax deaths in this part of the world in the last 50 years was 2 people up to the north around Punda Mlima. Mlia, sorry, not Mlima. I've been in Kenya too long. Mlima is a hill. Mlia. And those people who died had fed off a carcass of a kudu that had died from anthrax. Oregon is wondering whether we would burn it. We'd have to have a look. We'd call the Sabi Sands, and if we thought it was anthrax, as I said, it's the lesser of the two chances. I think it's most likely an old animal, not great condition at the end of dry season, and the cold snap killed it last night. But if it was an anthrax carcass, yes, it would be burnt to stop the spread. And at the moment, nothing's fed on it, so it's unlikely to spread if it was anthrax. The problem with anthrax and finding the source of anthrax is it depends on the animal. Animals can take as short as 48 hours to die after exposure, or they can live for as long as 14 days, 2 weeks after they've been exposed to anthrax. So it is quite a difficult one to control. The Kruger Park has been developing many different sort of controlling agents, but unfortunately none of them seem to work permanently, because often the anthrax outbreaks can come in areas where there hasn't been anthrax, and an elephant or a buffalo has kicked up anthrax spores that have been lying under the soil, and it might have been there for up to 500-600 years lying dormant. So it's a very difficult thing to control. Now, as much as we try to control things, and I think we had this discussion yesterday, should we be controlling the anthrax outbreaks? Possibly, especially if they're close to the edge of the reserves where there's the chance that an infected animal might move into human habitation. There is one record of a donkey dying of anthrax, but that donkey was being used to transport poached meat out of the Kruger in that same area up to the north of us. Oh yes, I forgot to tell you. I told you about how vultures are the great spreader of the anthrax spores. The other great spreader of the anthrax spores is the fly species that feed off the carcass. So those spores are so tiny they'll actually stick to the flies' bodies, and as the flies fly around and move from to different carcasses, they are able to spread. So there's 2 different controlling agents for anthrax. Fire being the most obvious one. If you find an infected area in Kruger, what they'll do is they'll block off the waterhole, make sure no more animals can get access to that waterhole. And that's only if they can find the source, which, as I said, is sometimes very difficult, because the animals can live for 48 hours to 2 weeks, so they can move very far from where they contracted the disease. The other one is they have been trying to develop some chemical controlling agents that you can put into the water that will immediately kill the spores, but the problem is they're so small and they could be spread around in the mud and in the soil around the water holes. So it's a very interesting thing. But if you look at when the outbreaks happen, middle to end of dry season, when animals are not well, and it is a natural controlling agent to populations. So maybe the area is not big enough to sustain a big population of buffalo or nyala because it's so dry, and that'll mean that. Sorry, I just saw Darby zooming on the camera. It distracted me for a second, and that will mean that those animals will die, and then in theory there should be enough food left for the other animals as long as they don't go drink out of the same water hole. Okay, well, because my eye has been led towards Tingana on the screen, let's go see what he's up to.
Well, yes, he's a very miserable cat right now. And so, Brent, while it might be nice for you in the tent, poor Tingana is not enjoying this at all. This rain is kind of coming in at him, and the poor guy is having a bit of a tough time of it at this stage. He's unfortunately getting wet and not really that impressed. In fact, he's so unimpressed that you can see he even dropped a little present in front of the screen there. So that was kind of his doing at some point. He just decided he was going to get up and kind of defecate right there, and has decided then to lie fairly close to it. The hyena that kind of came in unfortunately got snarled at and chased off, and so that disappeared rather quickly, and Tingana then shoved his head into this bush in order to try and get out of the rain. It's not working very well. His tail and his back legs are getting wet, and there's the odd drop that hits him in the face, and you kind of just see his face rear up, and look at that. You're sulky, my boy. This is not pleasant. You better get used to it. We're in for a long few months again of rain. Nope, he's watching starlings now. It seems as though the rain kind of comes in, falls quite heavily, and then drops off a little bit, so I think he'll be alright, as long as he kind of sort of stays underneath one of these little thickets. But it's quite funny watching cats in the rain. They really dislike it. It's hilarious to me, particularly big male lions. That's always my favorite in a rainstorm, because their manes get so damp that it all folds over, and just they look thoroughly miserable when they're in the rain. It's hilarious to kind of see them going. At least with leopards, you know, they don't have that kind of same amount of hair, and so as much as they get wet, they don't look as miserable as lions, who look as though they've kind of been drowned and are not as majestic as they normally would be. Right, now talking about lions, it sounds like Sydney's lions have decided to wake up and are moving about.
All the lions are now starting to come past here where we are, and my apologies for the poll. You can see they are following each other. 2 has already gone past, and the rest I can see they are on their way. We are going to have a lovely sighting here at the moment. So they're just somewhere behind the dam wall coming up here. They might be here at any time now. This is quite an amazing sighting. I haven't seen lions for quite a long time. And this is the Nkuhuma Pride. So the other ones might be now very much close to the dam wall here. Yeah, I can see one coming right in front of us. So you can see they're all now starting to come. Look at that. It's looking at the other family members. So the Nkuhuma Pride is consisted of about 11 individuals. So if you can check, the lions can be very much strict in their territories. The membership only change when there is a mortality or the natality, only during the birth and death rates. Look at that. Very much inquisitive. The fact that the bellies are full, it doesn't mean they are not investigating about what's happening in the surrounding. Look at that. So there's one of the animals giving them a call at the moment. So that's why you can see they are looking. Animals are aware of their presence at the moment. Well done, Senzo. This is a great sighting and great shots. So I'm going to follow them now because I can see they are all gone past. So now they're heading towards a private concession area. So we're just going to see them before they cross. So you can see they are now on a convoy heading towards the private concession area. We were very lucky to have this sighting because it just took place not very far away from the border between us and the private. So So look at how these lions are walking on a convoy. So I'm not alone, there's quite a lot of other vehicles as well sharing the same sighting. So you can see this cat has got very powerful muzzles. And they do communicate very often, because every time the ones leading in front are stopping and checking the ones following behind. Look at that. It has been a fantastic sighting. We're very lucky with these lions, but now I can see they are now crossing over to the private concession, so our sighting is going to end here. I am going to see if I can find you any other interesting animal. I'll go back to the Nyala just to go and check if there is no other activities taking place. One of the lions is just now moving at the back here, following the others. I think this is the one which has got some problems with the mange, the skin-related problems. Look at that. So this is the last one following the rest at the moment. So I will just now try and go back to where we have just seen the dead Nyala earlier, just to see if there is no other activities taking place there. So now let's go back to Tingana and see how Tingana is doing.
Well, he's a wet cat, Sydney, so he's unfortunately kind of still sitting in his little spot where he's got his head firmly planted between the guarri leaves at the moment, and he's looking around. I'm trying to see kind of out the back of the car if anything is moving about near us, but I don't see anything, to be honest. There's no sign of any kind of other animals around. You know, you often kind of look around here and might see a hyena walking about, or maybe another leopard or something like that, but I don't see any sign of anything. He's definitely staring up kind of away from where the kill is at the moment. He's not growling or anything like that, so it's not something that's close, but I don't know if maybe he spotted something in the distance. Is the dam cam working, Emma? Because if it is, maybe somebody who is controlling the dam cam can have a look up on the ridge there. They might see something walking around. Apparently not. It's not working at the moment. Okay. Conrad is hard at work. Well, excellent. If Conrad is hard at work, well, then there's going to be a resolution fairly shortly. The man works harder than most, to be honest. But Tingy's dropped his head back down now, so I think everything is okay. I don't think we need to stress too much about anything approaching. It might have been something as innocuous as a bird kind of milling about, or could have even been some more kind of things like impalas or duikers or something that was around. So nothing to worry about. According to the Duke, he's kind of dropped his head back down and is going to have a bit of a nap. Now, if the rain stops and it kind of abates for a bit, we might actually see him wake up a little bit more and kind of just groom himself again. Often after rain, that's what cats will do, is they'll just try and kind of groom their coats again, get rid of all the wetness, just try to dry off a little bit, or just stand up and kind of shake their bodies just to get that excess water off of them. It hasn't really rained that hard just yet. I mean, this is still kind of light rain, and you know, the Duke would have had many storms in his life that have been far worse than this. In fact, he would have been around during the really rainy 2012 period where it kind of just hammered down all the time. So I suppose they get somewhat used to it, but it's never that fun to be in the rain when you don't have any roof over your head. I mean, we've luckily got a roof at the moment, which makes life a lot easier for us just to sit and enjoy and to take it very easy. We're not too stressed about life at the moment. But I wonder where those lions are off to. It'll be interesting to kind of see where they are. The rest of the Nkrumah Pride is very far, actually. So I spoke to the other guys that drive around in the west yesterday, and where they are is kind of, it's an area called Serengeti Open, which is basically straight south from Elephant Plains and Sylvan Camp, on a big open clearing there. And it's a long way away from where these 6 are at the moment. What's interesting, though, to me is that the guys were telling me yesterday that the lions that they had on that giraffe were definitely, some of them are the Nkuhuma pride. I mean, they've got the one with the big hole in her hip, apparently, is that side. And that they had 2 of mangy lions with them. Now, we know that on this side, there was the Nkuhumas, which are these ones, with 1 mangy male. And so there were 3 mangy males that were seen in the same place. Now, the last I heard is that the Manganes did have 3 and that 1 was missing. And so I wonder if the 3rd one is now latched onto the Nkuhuma pride as well, and they've now recruited another male, which would be quite something. Can you imagine if they've recruited 4 extra males over the course of the last month or two? Be quite weird. Well, obviously the pride's now got to come back together again, which hopefully will happen. I'm hoping that they will be able to kind of work out what's going on and eventually sort of get back together again. I'm very surprised that this lot didn't head further to the west to go and try and find the others. I suppose the others are keeping quite quiet because they wouldn't be making too much noise if they want to kill. They'll be fairly sort of quiet about their presence. They might start to vocalize once they finish with that giraffe and start heading maybe a little bit further back east. I'm pretty sure they're going to come back together again. I highly doubt that they won't. You know, the bonds between them are still quite strong, and the separation has not been that long. But there might actually be a split in this pride too in some point. I mean, I'm not saying now will be the split, but there could very well be a split in the pride, and the reason why is that pride is going to get very big. If there's another male that's joined, and there is indeed, you know, the extra sort of 3 mangy guys as well as the other one, it takes the Nkuhuma pride to 15. Now, the sub-adults, while they are still sub-adults, are big animals now and require a serious amount of food. And so 15 lions to feed that is going to be very, very tricky. They're going to have to be killing quite regularly, and particularly now as we start heading into summer months, it starts to become a bit trickier because things like buffalo, which is what they probably will need, are going to get fitter and healthier as that green grass starts to grow. So, you know, the buffalo will eat that, their body condition improves, and becomes much harder for them to hunt them. So, you know, it's going to be tricky for 15 lions to stay together in this area and to be able to find enough food to survive, and that might then cause a bit of a split to take place. We've seen it with the Salala pride countless times. I mean, the Salalas ended up being the Salalas, the Salala breakaways, the Manganes, the Mangan breakaways, and now even the Nsevu Kambula pride. So it's just, you know, it's kind of just keeps happening and changing, and it's just because those lion prides get too big to actually sustain themselves out here, and they then have to split out. And there's, you know, if you speak to guys like Rex, they reckon that the Torchwood Talamatis and Nkuhumas used to be one pride, and they've all split out. So, you know, it can happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Nkuhuma pride does split. I mean, that's a lot of lions to have in one place, particularly at the size and age that they are. Barbara, it would be very sad to see them split. I mean, obviously, we hope that it doesn't happen, and we hope that there is no split that takes place, but it is a very real possibility. What's happened with when the Salalas kept splitting is it was always the sub-adults that split off. So, you know, the sub-adults went off on their own and formed their own pride. Tingana, what are you spotting? I cannot see anything. I keep having this feeling that maybe Hosanna is just going to arrive here and come ambling up to his dad, but he's definitely spotting something. Every now and then he kind of just, his interest is piqued and he sort of looks through these branches. It's not like he's just sleepy and kind of looking around and just checking things out for the sake of it. He's definitely kind of looking in one direction. Every time he picks up his head, he kind of stares away from us and down sort of into this damn wall, but I can't see anything between all the trees and this roof. It's very tricky to see, you know. He's decided he doesn't have to stress too much. Wonder what it is. Maybe, like I say, a duiker or an impala or something that is milling about. That's catching his attention. Remember that, you know, leopards, even though they have a meal, doesn't mean that they won't watch others and potentially take another animal. They are very opportunistic, and so let's say a duiker had to run right at Tingana now, he wouldn't say no and would be able to kind of catch it and then try and hoist it. Actually, talking about things where, you know, animals are sitting and random things run, I saw a very cool video yesterday of a tiny little scrub hare, baby scrub hare, that was running around. And there was a big male lion that was investigating where this kind of scrub hare lay down, and this big male lion walked up to where the scrub hare was and kind of sniffing, trying to see what this tiny little thing was. And the little scrub hare then bolted and tried to run away. Obviously, I mean, when a big male lion comes bearing down and touches its nose against you, you're also going to run. And the scrub hare ran, and it ran straight at a little lion cub. And the lion cub, it must have been about a sort of 6-month-old cub. It wasn't tiny, but it was still small. And the little lion cub also got complete fright from the scrub hare charging at it, but tried to put out a paw half-heartedly. And somehow this little scrub hare managed to avoid not only the male lion, but this lion cub as well, and made an escape, which I thought was very, very cool. Tiny little thing has a serious survival instinct and a seriously good reaction time, because as that lion stuck out its paw, it kind of jinked to the left and managed to kind of evade that lion and run off, which was very cool. But you know, that just goes to show that they're opportunistic, and cats, you know, anything that runs around them, they will grab them, which is always good. Right, Tingy, what's your plans for today? I think he's probably, in all likelihood, not going to go anywhere. I was hoping he might go for a drink of water, but given that it's not that hot, he might not. Anyway, we talk about kills, and we've been talking about things evading death, and there's been a few dead animals, and, well, Brent is looking at something that's been dead for quite some time.
Well, it's dead and it's alive, all at the same time. Well, the giraffe isn't alive, but something is alive inside the giraffe. Now, let's try. I've got the microscope on the sweat bee's house. Wait, no, not yet. Don't come to the microscope. There we go. Now you can come to the microscope. So there we go. You can see the wax from the sweat bees. This is an ideal place for them to live, protected from all predators. Their honey is in the giraffe's brain cavity. Now, what happens is, you can see they've been busy working on it, and when we put the heat of the light from the microscope on it, let's just go off the microscope so I can just change the angle to try to look down the hole. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to try to change the angle so I can see deeper inside. And what happens often is when we put the microscope on, the warmth and the heat from the microscope will actually make the bees think that it's a lovely day. There we go. There we go. Let's go to the microscope quickly. Oh, wait, let me try the focus. There we go. So the light from the microscope convinces the little sweat bees that the sun is out and it's time to go collect pollen. Unfortunately, today, I'm lying to them, of course, because it is very, very miserable outside. But how cool is that? No, he's not buying it. Oh, he's gone deeper. Let me try. There we go. Isn't that cool? I mean, since we've had this giraffe skull, these bees have been living in here. So, no shame. I'm going to stop confusing them. I'm going to take the light away. How cool is that? I do love our resident bees. Now, of course, unlike a lot of the skulls, which you can see all behind me here, that live inside the tent, because the bees live inside the giraffe. I've forgotten what James named this giraffe. So because they live inside, we leave this skull outside so they don't get trapped inside the tent. There we go. It's always wonderful to see those little sweat bees. Now, of course, they can be some of the most infuriating, sorry, Seb, I'll stand in the light. The most infuriating critters out there. So, especially this time of the year, not so much here because there is quite a bit of water around, but I spent quite a lot of time in my younger years walking through the very dry Mopani forests of the Zambezi Valley near Lake Kariba. And they would become infuriating. Literally, they would come try drink your sweat, all the moisture from inside your eyes, the corner of your mouth, inside your nose. And one of the funniest things, especially in those really, really dry climates like the Zambezi Valley, the big Mopani woodlands of northern Botswana, the Miombas of northern Zambia, southern Tanzania, there isn't a lot of water around. So they have developed a very, very interesting way of finding moisture. And they can even irritate animals, elephants, buffalo, anything that's got moisture around its face. So when a normal honeybee stings you, it releases a pheromone that lets all the other honeybees know that there's danger and they must come and try sting in the same place. That's why when people get stung by swarms, they can actually die, because their instinctive response is to go attack that same thing, which is a threat to them. Now, the sweat bees have a very similar thing, but they've developed it differently. So when you squash a sweat bee that's buzzing in your eye or irritating you immensely, it releases a pheromone that lets all the other sweat bees know that there's water. So the more you squash, the more sweat bees attack. So you've got to really sort of get your zen on to try ignore them and not squash them. Otherwise, you'll get even more around your face, nose, mouth, and eyes. Yeah, so it's very, very interesting. So quite similar to the honeybee, but for a completely different reason. Now, they are called, in Gabon, since we were talking quite a bit about Gabon earlier, they're called binga bees in Gabon. Was it binga? Am I right? I'm trying to remember. I think it's binga or... Anyway, I can't remember what the miene was for it. But the very interesting thing is the chimpanzees in certain parts of Luangwa National Park go searching for those little nests. And you saw how small that little waxy nest was. And often those nests are in massive trees. You can have a tree that's 5 meters in diameter. And if you look carefully, you see this tiny little wax nest coming out. And the chimpanzees will go strip Marantissia plants, and which is quite thick. So you need like a grass stalk to get down there. But in the rainforest, ain't no grass. So the chimps will actually strip other branches till they are thin enough to get into that little hole, and they'll put it into the little hole and literally lick the tiny bits of honey that they can get off that stick. So very interesting. And sweat bees in different species occur. Oh, sorry, my hat's got caught. There we go. Occur throughout Africa, from the driest of the dry areas to the wettest of the wet in the Congo Basin rainforest. Now, another animal, actually, let's go this way. Another animal that takes advantage of sweat bees, not only here but also in Gabon, is the honey badger. Now, those bee nests are also sometimes in the ground, and the honey badgers will actually dig them out. Now, a very, very cool thing about honey badgers, which I know we've had some epic sightings, that one hunting the monitor lizard not so long ago with Steve, but I saw a honey badger like no other while I was in Gabon. I actually saw 2 different individuals in one sighting, and they were both menelistic honey badgers, so completely black. They lack that whole white back that you normally find on a honey badger. Now, in the rainforests, it is not uncommon for menelism to be more prevalent than it is in a savanna biome. And of course, it's very, very obvious why. I mean, I used to get depressed because I hadn't seen the sun in 2 weeks when I was working in the thick forest constantly. And what is the best camouflage in a dark place? It's to be black. So you have menelistic honey badgers in those rainforests. You have menelistic serval. You have menelistic golden cats, and also a high percentage of menelistic leopards. So there is quite a healthy population of leopards in those forests. They are a lot smaller than the savanna-based leopards, because the prey species they're feeding on are generally a lot smaller. They eat a lot of things like blue duiker, which are unbelievably tiny, also the other duiker species. But a leopard's favorite food in the area I was working was one of my favorite animals, which is called a red river hog. Wait, I think I've got a picture of one here, because we got Gabon up on here. Now, the red river hogs, oh dear, it's all gone haywire. So the red river hogs I find absolutely fascinating, because they... Oh no, my spelling's gone wrong. I'm panicking. There we go. The red river hogs have some very, very interesting behavior, but we're going to chat about that shortly after we've gone back to see what Mr. Tingana is up to.
Well, the poor Duke is being hammered on by rain now. The rain is really starting to fall and come down quite severely, and so I wouldn't be surprised we see him actually seek out a bit of a better spot to go and lie down in. The reason he's been watching, there we go, thought he might move. It's really starting to hammer down a little bit, and that's not going to be pleasant for anyone. So he's going to try and find himself the most deepest thicket that he can actually get into. No, there's nothing there, Tingy, I'm afraid. Shame, can't be comfortable, so we're not going to get great views of him. But I know why he was moving around, or why he was watching the way he was watching earlier. It's because there was a herd of nyala that's moving about, and they actually should come into view fairly shortly. They just gone behind a little thicket on the far end of the dam, so kind of past his carcass is where they went in. They went into that kind of area there. There we go, that's where they are, and so that's why he's busy kind of watching them at the moment. He's just seeing where they end up, and like I say, if he's opportunistic enough, maybe they came past and he could grab one, but for now I think he's just going to try and find himself a better spot to sit and stay out of the rain and not move too much. Minamu, yes, leopards will hunt for fish. They will go after particularly drying up dams. So when you get something like Gowrie Dam, let's say, that had water and there was catfish inside there, so you get a catfish species here that we call a barbel, you'll find that the leopards will go after that, and they'll kind of come into these thickets and into these muddy sections, and they'll kind of catch these fish that are stranded and can't really go anywhere. So there's quite a few cool photos and videos on leopards doing that they end up going completely kind of a black coloration because there's so much mud in the water at that point. And then there was a cat that was in the Timbavati for quite some time. I forget his name now, but a young male that I think it was Argyle male, maybe, I don't know, it might be wrong. No, it wasn't him, he was an older leopard, but it was a youngish male, and he used to try and catch fish in a small little pond close to a bridge. And was apparently quite successful. He used to catch them every now and then. I think he used to go after things like bream mostly, but somehow managed to kind of find a way to actually to get those kind of meals. But you can see Tingana how well he actually camouflages in there now. He's found himself a much better spot, far more kind of comfortable than where he was, and at least out of the rain for now. He's going to be a lot better off inside there than he was a little bit earlier, right out in the open. So as much as it's not great for us, I suppose if you're a leopard, that's a much better idea. And I don't think this rain is going to stop anytime soon. It looks like we're going to get a serious amount of rain today, and it's going to be this kind of hard pelting weather that we're going to get, I'm afraid, which means that driving around and looking for animals is going to be a little bit tricky. Right, now while we sit here and just try and stay somewhat dry, let's send you back across to Brent, who is completely dry in his tent.
Yes, we're dry, we're happy, and we're looking at one of my favorite creatures in the world. It is the potamasher, the red river hog. Now, in the area of Gabon where I was working, you used to get groups of hundreds. I mean, the biggest herd, I don't know, no, it's not a herd, it's a sounder, of course. The biggest sounder I saw was close to 200. And we're talking about the leopards that live in the rainforest. That is their favorite food, particularly the babies. I don't know. Do yourself a favor. Google red river hog. Look for the babies. They are so cute. They've got little spots, little sausages. And that is a leopard in the rainforest favorite food. So, how do the mothers and the rest of the sounder try to protect their babies from a leopard? And this is very, very interesting because it shows a high level of intelligence well, it is a pig, so pigs are quite well known to be intelligent. They actually build nests. So the female will go around, and with those very sharp teeth they have, snip a whole bunch of small bushes and trees, and they'll build this big nest. It can be sort of this high off the ground, and there'll be little tunnels in there for the little babies to live in. And what they'll do is in the area where the babies are still quite young and they're not moving, sorry, this place is made for James Henry. As you can see, if I stand up straight, I hit my head, I'm stuck in there. So I'm going to go back, stand outside so I don't have to duck and dive. There we go. This is better. So what they do is that they will make up to 5 or 6 fake nests. So they will make fake nests for the leopards to come check, but there might be no babies in them. So that's one of their ways that they actually try defend against leopard attacks on the babies. Now, they are also incredibly incredibly adaptable. They are true omnivores. They will eat anything. They'll feed off a carcass. Say if an elephant dies in the forest or a buffalo, they'll feed off that. They feed off fruit. They feed off bulbs. They feed off tubers. They even feed off grass close to the beach. And during the dry season, when there is almost no fruit and food deep in the forest, they'll come all the way to the beach to feed off crabs. I've watched them dig up crabs with their noses, ghost crabs in particular, and crunch, 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 crunch. And the most amazing thing is that the area of Gabon where I am is so untouched by human beings that you can sit down, and while you've got 200 of these pigs cruising down the beach and then crunching on crabs, you can sit within 10 meters while they walk past you feeding. It is absolutely incredible. Now, that's why I said they're one of my favorite animals. I spent a lot of time with them, and they're just wonderful. So you guys have Googled and you've seen how cute the babies are. My one regret is I never managed to get a good photograph of a baby red river hog while I was living in Gabon. Means we're going to have to go back, Sebastian.
Yep.
We're going to have to go back just to get a photo of the baby red river hog and catch a 100-kilogram tarpon. Those are my two big missions for Gabon, I think. And maybe go see some mandrills. And a golden cat is the other one that evaded me while I was in Gabon. Okay, let's go back down here. Vegas cat lover says all pigs seem to eat everything. Indeed, they do. They are true omnivores. But I just find it amazing that they show that level of intelligence to try to trick the leopards. Now, the leopards in the forests are much smaller because their prey species are generally much, much smaller. So a big male there probably weighs about 70 kilos at the most likely 60 to 65 kilos. The females that we caught on camera trap and stuff were tiny. So, I mean, maybe 30 kilograms, 35 kilograms. Little leopards. And that's also just a lack of food. As I said, everyone assumes the rainforest is full of food and life, and it is. But for a large animal, without the fact that there's no grass makes it a lot more difficult. So your predators are often smaller as well. Now, the most adaptable animals out there, of course, of the big cats are the leopard, and that's why they are the only ones that truly live deep, deep, deep in the forest. Okay, well, let's go see how a damp Sydney is getting on down to the south of us.
After the lions, I've just gone back to the Nyala carcass where I found that the carcass has not been touched at all. Now I am somewhere around Philemon's Deep, going up towards the tree house dam in order to see if maybe we can find some tracks for Hukumuri. But I saw there's some lion tracks here, and it seems like it's the Avokas. I saw the male tracks earlier on. It's just that now the rain is too much now. It's raining a lot where I am at the moment. So it's difficult for me to reallocate the tracks again. I have witnessed a hunt in the rain before. It was about 6 lions, but they couldn't win. It was tough. They do use rain as an advantage. They do conduct hunting activities. So the only problem is the ground when it's too soft, then it's difficult for them to run. But that is determined by what is in the stomach. Sometimes when they are too hungry, they always want to take a chance. Jonathan, the rain is very good, and that is what we are looking for. We need more rain here in southern Africa, specifically here by the Lowveld, as it's quite very dry at the moment. Coral, the only animal I've seen during my experience as a guide, when I was still doing commercial guiding in Marakele National Park, which is part of the South African national parks, it was a rhino which was struck by a lightning, and none of the scavengers went there to eat. So all these animals, they just left it like that. But animals who are just dying naturally, you will see the animals such as hyenas going there. Also the lions, they also go and eat. So there where we saw the nyala, I'm not too sure what exactly happened, but I would like to go and investigate during the afternoon just to see what is going to happen there. Yeah, the snakes can also be a problem. But there, the only thing I saw, it was a fume coming from the nose. There was no blood from the ears, from the eyes, and from the excretory organ for the droppings at the back. So, but let's wait and see what is going to happen during the day. So if animals are eating it, it means it's safe. But if they are not eating, it means it's not safe. So this is the area where Hukumuri is conducting his activities. So now, while I'm looking for Hukumuri in this area, let's go back to Tristan and see how Tingana is doing.
Well, Tingana is just a set of spots in a bush at the moment. He's still lying in there and trying to just stay out of this rain. So I'm sure Sydney would love to emulate Tingana's approach to life and just try to get out of the rain a little bit. It really is kind of unpleasant to drive around in. This is just hard enough that you get absolutely drenched, but not enough to kind of, you know, make you so wet that you just don't care anymore. It's just enough to kind of seep onto you, which is the worst kind of thing. Now what I'm going to try and do is, the rain's backed off a little bit in the last few kind of minutes, and so I'm going to try and just head down a little bit and see if I can just get maybe a bit of a better view on Tingana. We should theoretically get a slightly better view of him from down below there. Other thing I've got to be that's what I was hoping not to happen, is that all the water comes off the roof from sitting stationary, and it has just dribbled right down my right foot and into my shoe. I've done so well to keep my shoe out of getting dripped on, and now I've just failed. Yes, go that way. Yes, that side. This is what I'm talking about. Look at all the water. See, David is showing you what... There we go. Just brake quite hard, get rid of all of it. There we go. Excellent. That's all gone. Now we can actually drive slightly forward a little bit. No, don't start dribbling on me now. No. Not winning here. It's all... it's the worst is when it gets in your shoe, because it's one thing when it gets onto your clothes, but your shoes obviously don't dry very quickly, and so wet shoes are the worst thing to have, as well as wet socks. So hopefully that just stops its nonsense, and that's the last of it dribbling on me. But I somehow think it's not the case. Somehow these roofs manage to pool water in little compartments that it doesn't matter how long you drive for, you just end up getting these kind of big droplets falling on you. I don't know how it happens, but it does, and so not very pleasant at all. I've got to try and keep David on the right side here. Yes, there will be a better view of Tingana from here. I'll have to park quite close to his kill though. So, there we go. Have you got the pole? Don't worry, David, I'm sorting you out. Hold on. Now, it's not only my wet socks, Emma, it's my underpants that have also gotten wet now, because I just had a whole lake just fall on my one side, and so now I have wet undies as well, which is not very pleasant, to be honest. But at least we have a better view of Tingana. You see what we go through, Tingana? Just so that I can see you better, you've now made everything get all wet. How do you feel about that? He's looking at me as if to say, "You moron! I'm sitting in the rain without a roof. What are you moaning about?" Anyway, you kind of managed to kind of get into at least a little bit of a better position to see him. He's nicely tucked up under his trees and will be staying a little bit drier than when he was out in the open. That is for sure. So he'll be a happier cat underneath there. And pretty sure that most of the day is going to be like this. So poor Tingana is going to have to just pretty much sit up there, and in the gaps when it stops raining, go up and actually feed on his carcass. His carcass is right above us at the moment, so kind of where we had to park to be able to see him now has meant that the carcass sits very close to where we are, and it's actually quite gory to see it the way it is. He's eaten a lot though, now that I can see it from the other side too. There's really actually not that much left. Interesting. Hyenas must have gotten quite a bit of it, given that his belly is not hugely full. The hyenas must have gotten some of it as well. Now you can see this is the tree that we're talking about, so the roof will be in the way, but you'll see a leg dangling there. And yes, it's not dangling from the roof, I can promise you. It's a little bit further away than that, but you know, it's kind of right by us at this stage. If he does get up and decide to move towards the carcass, I'll definitely move away and allow him to kind of get back up, and we'll try and find a bit of a better spot. But for now, this is really the only way we can actually view him somewhat decently. Then if we kind of sat up on the top there, we weren't really going to get much out of it. Barbara, no, he doesn't have any sympathy. It's because he doesn't know what it's like to have wet underpants. He doesn't have underpants, and so he doesn't know what that's like to have the slow seep, and especially when it's cold. So he's he kind of doesn't know that feeling, and that's why he's got no sympathy. It's also because, he doesn't get to go and get into a hot shower later or be able to kind of go under a roof for the day. So I suppose I wouldn't have much sympathy either if I was to be exposed to these elements every day, all day, night and day. I would also want to kind of, well, like I say, have no real sort of feeling towards somebody that is getting wet. The problem is that the way that we've positioned the car now, if it starts to really rain, we are going to get sopping, because we no longer have the protection of the car like we did earlier on the one side. So here it comes, David. Are you ready to get wet? Yes, now it's starting to rain quite hard, and the whole right side of me is going to get very damp. Right, I'm going to try and reposition ourselves so that we can not get as damp as what we are. And while I do that, though, let's send you back across to Brent, who's probably sniggering at being dry in the tent.
I'm dry. I've got hot tea. Aren't they jealous? And I'm a bit worried about Tristan wetting his underwear. I thought he was a big boy now. Well, I'm going to pay for that one later, I'm sure. But we're going to stick to Gabon since it's raining, and we're talking about rainforests. And I've noticed there's been a few questions about reptiles in the rainforest. Now, my favorite snake species in the whole world lives in those Congo Basin rainforests. And it is the loudest hissing snake in the world. It is called a rhinoceros viper. Now, they can get, the biggest rhino viper I saw was probably about this big, but also thick like this. And it's not the adults that I fell in love with. It's the babies. So when they are young, they have the most incredible coloration. And you can see the little nose, horns. That's where he gets his name from. So that's a baby rhino viper. How are those colors? Isn't it absolutely stunning? So as they get older, they lose a lot of those colors. And even a tiny little rhino viper like this can make the most incredibly loud hiss. And they can hiss louder than I can. Much louder than that, actually. And my second favorite snake is another snake that, like the rhino viper, was probably even more rare than the rhino viper. Very, very few people in the world have had the chance to play with a blind Calibra boa. So I was very excited when I found it. And you can see it. It's a completely blind snake that's related to pythons. And you can see how you look when you live in a forest. Dirty and skinny and sweaty. But there, that's a blind Calibra boa. So, of course, the Gabon viper as well. And I do have pictures. I just don't have them here, unfortunately. We saw quite a few big Gabon vipers. A Jamison's mamba. But the snake we saw the most often was forest cobras. And they got really big, over 3 meters. But the most iconic reptile in Longa National Park, where I was the Nile crocodile. So Longa National Park is famous for surfing hippos, but it's not the only animal that utilizes the sea. So there is a picture of a Nile crocodile walking into the ocean. Now, a lot of people were thinking that they actually feed in the ocean and whatnot, and I was fortunate to live with the leading crocodile expert in that part of Africa while I was there. They don't actually feed in the ocean. So what they do is they use the ocean and the currents to move between the lagoons that go into the into the forest, and the Nile crocodiles are only on that sort of coastal belt. They do not live in the rivers deep in the forest, and the main reason for this is the other crocodile species that occur there, the slender-snouted crocodile and the dwarf crocodile, are able to nest inside the closed forest canopy and still get a good mix of male and female babies from their nests, and I'll explain that properly in a second now. But the Nile crocodile, because of how they nest, needs sunshine. So depending on the temperature, the slightly colder temperature will produce females, and the slightly warmer temperature will produce males, the opposite to tortoises and terrapins. So what happens is that when a crocodile digs a nest, and they'll dig it out in an open sandbank that'll get direct sunlight, the eggs at the bottom of the nest will become female, and the eggs at the top of the nest will become male. So they cannot live in the deep closed forest because there are not enough open sandbanks and there's not enough nesting. So once you get away from the beach areas in Longa National Park, the Nile crocodiles disappear. Now, the forest crocodile species, the slender-snouted crocodile and the dwarf crocodile, have different ways of controlling the temperature of their nest. They're both quite similar. The slender snouts will build a massive pile of vegetation. I mean, for a relatively small crocodile, they'll build a mound that's sometimes a meter and a half high. And what happens is the decaying vegetation in that mound that they build, obviously, when vegetation decays, it produces heat. So, again, the eggs on the edges, where the closest to the decaying vegetation, will become males because it's warmer, and the eggs furthest from the decaying vegetation will become females because it's slightly cooler. And the dwarf crocodile, very, very similar. Actually, it'll take me a while, but I do know I have pictures of both slender-snouted and dwarf crocodile around here. But they are very, very cool. So it was amazing. Thank you very much, Louis. Louis says, I'm a walking encyclopedia. Louis, I'm very, very lucky to have lived and worked in about 15 different African countries. And I like reading a lot. So I read a lot. And always before I go somewhere new, I make sure I digest as much information as possible about it. Now, it's quite strange because at school, the teachers thought I was very, very lazy. Well, I think what are those you get on your school reports? Not fulfilling potential. That was me. I did the least amount of work possible to get a university pass. I had no interest in most of the stuff that I was being taught. However, as soon as I found something that I was very interested in, all of a sudden my marks would jump up to A's. But if it was something I didn't have an interest in, I would literally do the bare minimum just to pass. It drove the teachers quite mad. My mother quite mad. My dad's theory was like, I've done high school. If you fail and want to be a street sweeper, that's your problem. I'm not doing high school twice. His favorite quote about my grandmother was, your gran did finished high school 5 times, once for herself and 4 times for each of her children. And I'm not going to be doing that. This is up to you to work on what you want. But I sort of knew a life in academia was not for me. It was quite obvious that I was probably going to run away to the bush at the first sign of any trouble with the studying, which is sort of what happened. But anyway, I found my little niche, so I'm quite happy out here. So I was looking for slender-snouted crocodile. Okay, so while I try to find the pictures of the dwarf crocodile and the slender-snouted crocodile, actually, before we send you off to Sydney, we have got a slender-snouted crocodile. So the only way they bask is they actually climb up trees on the rivers in the forest. You can see how thick it is behind. And that is a slender snouted crocodile. They can get up to about 3 meters, but they pose almost zero threat to human beings because their mouth is very, very narrow and quite brittle. And it's obviously, you can see it's a very specially designed muzzle that is designed for feeding on fish. And the most delicious giant freshwater prawns, crayfish things. I used to eat a lot of those when the season was right. Okay, let's go see where Sydney's off to and what he's looking for next.
There is no sign of Hukumuri at the moment here by the Mendoza Road. I am trying to check and see if we can be lucky with something. So there's only quite a lot of impalas here I saw, and only a few duikers as well. And Hukumuri, my main target, is not around at the moment. So this morning I am relying on my sense of smell and the eyesight a lot, as trekking is never easy this morning. So at least now the rain is low a little bit. It's not heavy as when we started joining this area earlier on. At the moment I can feel that the rain is not heavy at the moment, it's very light. Eddie, earlier on when I started, I went to their territory and I couldn't manage to get hold of their tracks. However, this afternoon, that is going to be my target. I will be looking for Thandi and Kalamba. I have also not seen them for quite a long time. I'm sure Kalamba is now growing. She must be very big by now. Maybe she's not going to recognize me anymore. Yeah, it is very much difficult to see what has been on the ground here. So, but this portion where I am is showing that the rain is only coming now. So in the reserve, the different areas is receiving different kind of amount of this rain. I can see where I am now that it has been dry. So it's only now that this area is getting some rain. So this morning, only the eastern part received more rain. So these animals, they must be now deep in the thick bushes where they are feeding. Maybe they are also thinking about the predation activities, because when it's cloudy like this, the predators also get very excited, because here by the big open spaces, nothing is happening at all. But mostly when it's very sunny, the big openings, they have got quite a lot of prey animals. It was an old hyena track. Maybe it's not that very old, it's old because of the rain. So the grass is looking very, very wet at the moment. So while I'm still looking for what we can find this side, let's go back to Tingana and see what Tingana is doing with the rain.
Sleeping at the moment, so he's dealt with the rain fairly well. It's slowly stopping now again. I think it's going to be like this the whole day. It's just going to be waves of kind of wet weather and then dry and wet and dry. And so for now he's okay. I mean, he's still in his same spot. His head is down and he's having a bit of a nap. You can see he's kind of breathing quite deeply as he does nap, and pretty sure he's going to have a nice little sleep inside his little thicket there. If there's any bit of sunshine that breaks eventually, though, I wouldn't be surprised he kind of comes out and dries out a bit, and then we'll find some shade a little bit later. But at least for now, the rain is not too bad and is slowed down quite significantly in comparison to what it was doing earlier. It definitely is a lot better off. Well, we're a lot better off, should I say, than what we had just now. But it's going to be interesting to see how much rain we get. I definitely think that this kind of rain, if we get this all day long, will be enough to really kickstart things. It's going to turn this dry winter grass into green grass. This kind of soft rain really does seep in, and it's a perfect kind of rain for grass to actually grow. And so I wouldn't be surprised by this time next week it's a completely different looking reserve. Most of the branches should have leaves on them by then, and I think we'll have a very kind of green, healthy looking system hopefully by the end of a couple of weeks time. It depends on obviously on how much we get. If it stops now and we don't get anything more, well, it definitely would not have been enough. But if we get this throughout the day and into tomorrow like it's forecast, then I think we're in for a bit of a good run, and well, hopefully a bit of greenery that will come through. But it's going to make game viewing a lot more tricky than what we have had. We've been so spoiled of late with lots and lots of sightings that, you know, this rain is definitely going to make things a lot harder, particularly once we start to see the little pans all filling up. Once those fill up, then the distribution of our animals becomes much wider and far harder to find. You know, we're not going to see the likes of Tingana and Hosana coming to the pans every night because there's no other water around. They're going to be spoiled for choice and can go wherever they want, and that might just mean the kind of difference between seeing them as regularly as we have, as opposed to kind of having it a bit more tricky. So it'll be interesting. What we might see, though, is we might see a more of an influx of I know we've had a lot of ellies of late, but it's been quite quiet with ellies for the most part over the winter, and so we might see a few more ellies coming in with a bit of rain. They'll often come to where there's nice fresh green grass, and you should start to see things like buffalo and zebras and the likes also moving. Tingy, is it better now that it's stopped raining? He's kind of eyeing out his kill a little bit, just making sure it's still there and everything's okay. And I wonder if he's contemplating maybe going up and having another feed between the sort of bouts of rain. There still is a little bit falling, so I'd be surprised if he does come out just yet. I think he's going to spend most of his day waiting for the rain to stop completely before he decides to feed. I mean, at least we got a nice view of him from down here. Much, 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 much better sitting with him down here than it is kind of up at the top. Now, I've been listening to Brent this morning and all his kind of stories about Gabon and all kinds of things, and I must agree with him. Those red river hogs are very beautiful animals. It was one of the things that I really wanted to see when we went to the Congo, and we actually didn't see any. We heard them and saw tracks for them, and they were around at night, but the guys in the lodge and where they situated on this bay or saline, they don't shine any lights at night. So the idea is just to leave the forest animals to have their time and to move around. And so we heard them and like I say, found tracks for them, but just didn't see them. And it's really a beautiful animal. So I would hopefully have to head back in those directions to be able to go see them. I've spoken to Brent quite a bit about it, and he says Gabon is one of the better places to go. Anyway, we'll sit for the last kind of little bit of drive with Tingana, see whether or not he might go up into the tree one more time. While we do that, let's send you back across to Brent.
Okay, so I did manage to find the dwarf crocodile. So as I said, I was working with one of the leading crocodile experts in Africa, and there we had to catch them to take genetic samples from them, because recently matters proved that there are actually more than one species of dwarf crocodile. That the papers haven't come out yet. So we were taking little genetic tests, and they're quite a challenge to catch. Let me tell you, it's not easy. I ran for about 100 meters down that forest and actually had to dive on him inside a pool of water to catch that crocodile. shame. And when you do get them like that, oh, sorry, the light, there we go. They make an awful hissing noise. And they puff themselves up. Now, the leopards there also eat quite a lot of dwarf crocodile. So unlike the other crocodile species in the world, these guys don't live in permanent water. They'll actually even live in clearings in the forest. And to find dwarf crocodiles, it depends. It can be quite easy. So it can be quite difficult. Sorry, Seb, I wanted to see. Here we go. I can't remember where that other photo is, but that's fine. There's actually a picture of me with only my feet sticking out of the ground, and I've got basically a torch, and I'm crawling into a dwarf crocodile's nest. So, or not nest, so it's hollow. So they hide during the day, mostly in the hollows. You don't actually find them out in the open too much in the day. You have to go out at night. And they basically will be around where there's water. So they'll be close to a forest stream or a forest pan. And basically the entrance to the hole will be in the dry. And then it goes down and goes below the water table. So they can sit in the water at the bottom of their hole. Some of the holes are quite short, so a meter or two that you can crawl down and grab it. It's quite difficult, though, because you're grabbing the front end. And even though they are quite small, you don't want to be bitten by a dwarf crocodile. It's not ideal. And then you've got to try manhandle them out while someone else grabs you by the ankles and manhandles you out of the hole. So I did some very interesting stuff up there. And some of the other work we did was on the habituation of gorillas and chimpanzees. We had really good success with the chimpanzee communities. And what we discovered is that we got told it was near impossible and it was going to take us 10 years to habituate chimpanzees. It took us about 4 months. And it's the quite interesting thing about going into an area like that with no preconceived ideas. So the scientists have been there forever and they're like, oh no, the chimpanzees just run away from you. They just run away from you. And basically, if you take very similar principles to what you do out here with nervous leopards or nervous elephants, nervous lions, unhabituated, the same principles apply. If you keep walking at an animal, it is threatening. It's going to keep running away. So when I could hear chimpanzees feeding or banging on the buttresses, you'd get close enough that they could definitely hear you, and I'd sit down on a log and start talking. Absolute nonsense normally. There'd normally be one of us, so I'd start talking to the person. Oh, look at this, isn't that nice? There's some lichen around us. It's going to rain later. Oh, look, there's some fruit in that fig tree. And what happens is the natural curiosity of the chimps would take over and they would actually come to us. So it worked out as a far more successful way of habituating chimpanzees than chasing them around, which people have been doing for years and years. And chimps are clever. If you keep following them, they will get so smart that they will lose you in seconds. And they can move through the forest a lot faster than you can. Now, we also had camera traps. We started off with about 70 camera traps, somewhere around there. But elephants didn't like them. They used to destroy them. And chimpanzees, we've got some amazing video footage of a chimp trying to pull the camera trap right off the tree we'd been put on. So we actually had to get quite creative with our ways. To stop the elephants destroying them, we actually used to smear them in elephant dung. I just think that area was so wild and had so few people in it that the elephants reacted negatively to the smell of humans there that had been on for a long time. But I'll show you quickly here where we used to live. We had 2 camps. And this dodgy mouse decides to work. Whee! There we go. So there's the lagoon. One camp was right here on the edge of this forest, and the reason our camp was there is there was a freshwater spring, so we could get water without having to travel quite far distances. Because even though there's a lot of water close to the coast, a lot of it is saline. And then our other camp was where's the junction of the 2 rivers? There. So our other camp was on that pinnacle. Oh, and I forgot to tell the story about me and the forest elephant, so we're going to have to save it for another day. Let's send you back to Tingana and Tristan. It seems like he's crawled a little bit out of his thicket.
Well, Brenty, I'm pretty sure this will not be your last tent session in the next few weeks. I'm pretty sure we're going to get more rain, and so the forest elephant story can wait until the next Brent tent session. But they are amazing creatures, the kind of forest ellies, so I'm looking forward to what Brent has got to say. Anyway, the Duke is still lazing about, still kind of looking on miserably at the rain that is falling. It's not very heavy rain, but there is a bit that is kind of dropping down every now and then, and the odd drop hits him in the head, and that makes him not very happy at all. And so he's kind of just trying to figure out what he wants to do. But I'm pretty sure he's going to just nap inside here, and then every now and then go up and feed as and when the rain abates. But for now, it's going to be, I think, a sort of tired Duke that will spend his time in the thicket sleeping for a while, just to kind of rest off and digest that food that's in his tummy already. But it's been a rather damp day today. It's been a rather damp start to the day, which is not a bad thing. We need the rain at the end of the day. We do need a bit of water around, and so it will be good that there is a bit of rain falling, and hopefully it does continue to fall throughout the day. But like I say, it's been an epic morning in many respects. Even though it's been wet, we've still managed to find some very cool things. Tingana with his kill, and the lions with Sydney, and well, the mystery of a dead Nyala, and obviously Brent with all his stories in the tent. But from all of us, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope that you enjoyed the morning. Remember that we do this all again this afternoon, so don't forget to catch us on our Sunset Safari.